Welcome to the Geek Homeworld podcast. I'm your host, Ed, aka the Savage Tech Man. We talk film, TV, and tech, all from a geek perspective. You can find us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and you can subscribe and follow on YouTube at Geek Homeworld. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Be a part of the Geek Homeworld. Thank you. I never got a standing ovation.
That was for me.
Oh, was it? Okay. Well, you deserve it for being here and making time out of your busy schedule. Anyway, welcome everyone. This is a mini historic episode. For a lot of reasons. This is Geek Homeworld episode 170. Woo! It only took me 10 years to get here. Exactly. And I've got a special guest here, longtime friend and collaborator, and who's very prosperous in his own right.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Anyway, so welcome to this episode. We are talking. It's a live stream here. This is episode 170 of the Geek Homeworld podcast. Our live stream, Mutant Liberation Begins. Yay. I was expecting your Magneto action figure to show up for that one with the M.
I don't have the 97 one, but okay. I didn't go digging. I didn't have time to go digging for.
So who is this hairy Klingon that's in my video here on YouTube in the live stream? Let's see. His name is DigitalCavemann of DigitalCavemann Presents. And he's got you have a channel. Welcome. He has a channel. It's on
right there
in the crawl.
On the screen you can see it.
YouTube.com.
Under my name.
Under your name. Oh yeah, it's under his name. There you go. YouTube.com /
So please make sure you do that and do a / join so you can see my new membership offerings.
Oh, you have new membership offerings? Would you like to tell us about them?
Well, I don't have the stuff sitting right in front of me, so I can't tell you exactly.
Well, just what you get. Lie to me and tell me a little bit.
You have to go in and check it out. You know, I've got some stuff set up. Some of the tiers get early videos. So, and everything, everything for next week. And this might not always be true, but yesterday I got everything for next week finished and uploaded. So if you are a member with that tier, then you could be watching my videos right now.
That's true. And if I ever get to that point, I promise I'll actually, no, I won't. I'll set something up in a timely manner and all that, and it'll be up and ready.
You'll get it.
I almost made it on time. I was technically here 2 minutes early for my own live stream, but anyway, this podcast is not sponsored by anyone, naturally, but I'm having my protein bar, so we're gonna have a little protein while we talk about this because I'm gonna need my energy, right?
You're gonna need some energy to talk about these mutants, huh?
Yeah, and then I might have to open the door. But anyway, I took a big bite of that. I should have done that.
Don't choke on it, man.
I don't want to choke on it. Ding, ding, ding. Oh, while we're here, while I'm chewing, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ding that bell, do all that stuff, whatever makes you happy. You won't truly be happy until you are subscribed to this YouTube channel.
Like, share, subscribe, ding the bell.
Tell a friend, call your neighbors, talk to your family you hadn't talked to in a while, and tell them that they need to go. Call your enemies because we'll take them too. Because we want to be like Magneto. We're trying to do better. Please don't let me let you down. Somebody, oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about this. But anyway, Geek Homeworld, go to youtube.com / at Geek Homeworld 4248. And when I get up to 100 subs, I can make that actually say. I can change that. So we're at 52 subs. So we've picked up a good amount of subs. I was 999% over the last 28 days. So I've done almost
those percentages. sometimes those percentages make you feel really good,
especially when you're terrible at math like I am. So things like that matter. But yeah. So I'm looking for subs. I'm looking for. I'll take pizza, but I'll take subs. I'll take pasta. Oh no, subscribers would be great.
No pasta for you.
This is very unscripted. I had a plan where I was going to map out the 2 episodes to Me, My X-Men, and
that never worked.
It never worked. And Mutant Liberation Begins. That's where I got the title. So last week's episode 169 was me getting psyched up and previewed for the previews of the 2 new episodes for X-Men 97, and I've been terrified because we're getting mixed messages in the press, but it all debuted, and I tell you what, Disney, I have not felt this happy about something that Disney has had a hand in years.
I haven't been this excited about a Marvel project in years, and I wasn't super excited about it.
I was
before it came on because stuff that's been going around, and it may end up that stuff might be right, but I hope not, because this show is off to a great start. Those first 2 episodes, I was not disappointed.
Excellent start.
It made me excited about it again. Much more excited than, say, a certain trailer dropped this week.
Oh dear. Where are my acolytes when I need them?
Which I will honestly say I am not interested at all in what I've seen so far.
You're going to put me on a tangent already where we talk about the acolyte and Star Wars Theory.
We don't have to talk about it.
We won't, but I'm going to talk about it real quick since you brought it up. Yeah, they dropped the acolyte. Is it a good trailer? Yeah, it's a pretty decent trailer. It's definitely skewing. I had to look really hard. Oops, sorry. My sound just blew out there. I had to look really hard to find the males in there, no matter what species they were. And I noticed that we're talking about diversity in the acolyte. It was mostly female humanoids. I mean, female earthlings. Or not earthlings.
There was an Asian dude.
Okay. But
there was a black dude.
Yeah.
Or African American dude, whichever. I don't know who prefers what, but there it is. And then the rest of the cast.
Well, I wasn't even going to talk about race, so that's not an issue really to me, but it's just the female to male ratio. And then the alien to non-alien, because this is Star Wars, you're supposed to have a lot of different, they did a comparison. Star Wars Theory did a comparison where he's like, he just showed just random clips from the different films, and they were, you'd have 4 or 5 different races from different planets, different parts of the galaxy. This was basically a bunch of what would you call them in Star Wars? They wouldn't be Earth-based. They would be like Earthling-like. I don't know. What would you say?
Yes, they would be human.
Human-like. Yeah. Which is fine, but I wanted a little bit more, to make it feel more encompassing of the galaxy. But we're going to get to the crux of the issue that I have with it. It has been confirmed that, because it's gone back and forth, that it is 100 years before the events in Phantom Menace. 100 years. So, Darth Plagueis would be alive in this period. His Sith Master, Tenebrous, would be alive, definitely alive in this. And Kyle...
Not to mention that Yoda's going to have
Yoda would be there, and Yoda may show up, we don't know, but... Star Wars Theory, in his video today that he dropped, some lady was on there debunking, saying that everybody who is making fun of Acolyte are racist, and that's not true. You can't paint with a brush that broad. And he was just debunking all the claims that they made. And, hold on, let me finish. And they also said in this article, obviously written by somebody that doesn't really know the lore of Star Wars, And Star Wars Theory, you should check his video out. I don't know the name of it, but I saw it this afternoon, and he debunked that. Plus, he debunked the fact that this is taking place 100 years before the events in Phantom Menace. Well, Jedi Master Mundi in Episode 1 said, how could the Sith return without us knowing? They've been extinct for a millennia, which is 1,000 years. And so that flies in the face of canon, because the prequels are canon, you know? And
well,
I have a problem with that. If we start seeing Sith, I'm sorry, the Jedi would know. Somebody would have known, you know? So that presents a problem.
Assassin or whatever she is fighting killing these Jedis.
Do I think, and I agree with Star Wars Theory on this, I think it's an interesting concept. When I heard the concept for this series, and I'm still trying to keep an open mind, and yes, I will watch it, unless it's just total garbage. But
it has the first episode to get me, and if it doesn't get me in the first episode, I'm done with it.
But Disney Plus has shown us the first couple episodes, like X-Men 97, the first couple episodes could be exceptional, perfect. And then it could be right down a hill. I don't think that's going to happen with X-Men 97, but I'm super optimistic, and I'm very good about living in the moment. So I am enjoying, like Qui-Gon Jinn said, be mindful of the living force. Be mindful of the moment, you know?
So, not at the expense of the...
Yeah.
Or the... whatever. Yeah. He said something about the present or the future or something. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Keep your thoughts centered in the here and now, Obi-Wan. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting.
And you know, I just watched like 90% of episode 1 a month ago.
So fingers crossed for Acolyte. We'll see. We'll be covering it. But that leads me to you mentioning episode 1 you were just watching.
What I was going to say about Acolyte,
sorry.
Move on.
Go ahead.
Is, you know, these people are out hollering, "Oh, you don't like it, you're a racist." Da, 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 da. You know who these same people are? They're the same ones that told us we were a bunch of douchebags if we didn't like the 2016 Ghostbusters movie. So same damn people.
All right. You're about to make me do an aside here, because I saw Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Yeah, let's know. Hush.
I won't give you any spoilers, I promise. Overall, my thoughts were, for me, Afterlife was the perfect send-off. Couldn't have got any better for the OG cast, right? And I like the new cast. So this film should have been the first completely, you know, it should have been like First Contact, you know, in Star Trek, where you had generations that bridged the two Enterprise teams, or generations of it.
You mean generations,
right,
not
First. Well, Generations had them together. That was the bridge, and then First Contact was the first Next Generation film. Right. It should have been something in that vein. And it was, but there are too many people in this film. They could have cut the budget in half had they not had a lot of people there. And as much as I like the OG characters there, they really weren't needed in this story. And some of the newer characters, some of the side characters, could have not been in there, and it wouldn't have changed the film. But I will tell you this: is it a great film? In my review, I wish I had it. I had it somewhere in a text. I said if you are a Ghostbusters fan, you will enjoy this film. It's impossible to love this film more than Afterlife, but it is possible that it is a good film. I enjoyed it. I will say the special effects, especially with the monster that's involved in this, one of the central bad characters in the film, is done extremely well. Very convincing, even scary to a point. And I absolutely love the movie poster for it. I don't know if you've seen the movie poster for that. And I like the one for Afterlife, but I really like the Frozen Empire Ghostbusters poster. It's just really well done. And so those are good things that I have to say about it. So overall, should you see it? Yeah. But if you're going in thinking it's better than Afterlife, you're going to be disappointed in that sense. But if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you probably won't care as much.
Let me ask you like this. So original Ghostbusters,
right?
Super awesome, great film. Perfect. Then it had a sequel,
which was
Ghostbusters 2, which was not.
It's good.
As good. It was okay. So,
right.
With Afterlife being the quote unquote first film for at least for this series of Ghostbusters, how does that compare the new one, Frozen Empire? How does that compare with Ghostbusters 2? Is it
if you believe a lot of the reviewers out there, they're going to say it's absolutely horrible, and they're going to run the normal thing they do to tear a film down. When
those channels that hate everything.
Their income is based upon negativity.
Right.
Mine isn't, and but for me, Ghostbusters 2. Frozen Empire. Okay, you have the original Ghostbusters in '84. You have Afterlife in 2018, is that right? Or whenever it was. Okay.
Right.
So essentially you have the two originals, right? Those are the best at what they do. Ghostbusters 2 in what was that, 89, I guess, or something like that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Because it was.
I liked it less.
No. It was later than that, I think.
It was later 89 or 90, something like that.
It came out.
Because it had that Bobby Brown song in it, On Our Own.
What year did Last Crusade come out?
89. Was it 89? That was 89. So this might have been 90.
That was the same year.
Okay.
It was 89 or 90.
Okay, it was 89 then. But anyway, so original Ghostbusters, still the best. Can't top it.
Right.
And if I have to put them together, I would say Afterlife is next to that. Then I would put Frozen Empire. And then I would put Ghostbusters 2. I didn't like Ghostbusters 2. I mean, I thought it was okay. Maybe
it was okay. It did not live up to the potential of the first movie.
And plus they waited about 4 or 5 years to make that sequel. Had it come out like 2 years later.
It took way too long for them to
and at that point they could have brought in Eddie Murphy, even though he was originally supposed to be Ernie Hudson's character. He was supposed to have played that. And I was thinking that coming out in theater, I reminded myself of that. And I was like, that would have been really wild. And it would have been good for Eddie Murphy because he started to cool off a little bit after that because he was red hot during the early to mid 80s.
Yeah, the early and mid 80s.
Right.
I mean,
so
you had like Golden Child and Coming to America and, of course, Raw, which really, I mean, he was already on the map.
And
but
Delirious,
Raw,
don't forget he had Delirious.
His position as pretty much the number one comic at the time.
At the time, he was white hot. Yeah, he even had a music career. That's how hot he was.
I don't want to get copyrighted. So
it was the Rick James. I'm Rick James, bitch. Song. Party all the time.
Party all the time.
Party all the time. So anyway, yeah. So Ghostbusters good. But what I was getting at when you mentioned seeing Phantom Menace the other day, the 25th anniversary, which to me it seems like it's longer than 25 years, but when I counted it out, 2024 from 1999 is 25 years. So we're getting the Phantom Menace with a special. You're going to be excited about this exclusive preview of The Acolyte at the end of it. So I know you're waiting on that.
I'll leave during the credits. But of course, it won't matter because where I'm located, it will not. It won't be theaters most likely. Which I hate, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and our cinemas up here aren't as good as the ones in Savannah. I mean, we don't have the IMAX that can really hang with the IMAX there. I mean, I'll take what I can get, but at least I got my Twizzlers at Regal, so I'm excited about that. And so I'm excited to go see if it comes here, all of the films. And I had a printout of it, and I don't know what I did with it, of when they're all releasing. I don't know that it said when they were all releasing, but I had a list of them. And I will definitely go see them in the theater. I did not get to see Return of the Jedi's 40th anniversary when it came out. Was it last year to theaters?
Yeah, last year.
It did have a really cool poster with like Luke in the background of Endor, and then you would see the Vader shuttle on the ramp or whatever you call that in the background of Endor, and all that. And I guess you probably had Vader's helmet or something.
What I really wish they would do for these anniversary releases of the films is re-release the original theatrical cuts of these as an anniversary, because that's what it's the anniversary of, is the original.
Well, you know, Lucas has already said that
all we're gonna
we're never going to see the unspecial editions, the pre-special editions versions ever again. He doesn't want that. So even though Disney owns it, there's no plans for that ever to make the light of day. I think that's part of the agreement.
All they want to do is just keep changing the originals,
and that leads us into
they don't really bother too much. The biggest thing that they've done to the prequels, and I think this actually changed it for the better, was in episode 1 when they released it on, I want to say it was one of the DVD releases, not the first one, of course.
Right.
But one a more recent release. It may have even been the Blu-ray release.
Well, they added more Universal stuff to tie it all together, which was cool.
But no, what they really changed in episode 1, and again, I think it was for the better, was they took out the Yoda puppet and put in the CG model from episode 2.
Well,
and I think that really helped it.
It did, and even though we've talked about this not on the podcast. Well, we probably did talk on a podcast at some point. I'm sure we did, but recently we talked about it, and you know the technology wasn't there for that in '99, and by the time Lucas was able to go back and add him, you know, otherwise we were going to get a lightsaber battle with Yoda and someone in episode 1, but he knew he couldn't do it realistically until they advanced the technology, which is what Lucasfilm always did. Mainly George Lucas, he's always been the
driving force of technology.
Yeah, when he moved things together, he pushed the medium like James Cameron does, like Nolan does.
Yes, you know? I would say what Cameron does now is what Lucas used to do.
Though, as an aside, they came out with The Abyss and a couple of his others. True Lies came out on 4K, and they did an AI restoration of it. And there are people that really aren't terribly excited about those releases. They're like, it's not the best. They thought that Cameron could have done more. You know, I'm not going to knock him for at least
putting restoration of it.
I think so. I think he put it in AI's hands, and
I really don't think improving the visual effects on a movie like The Abyss really makes that much of a difference.
It's still a great film, regardless.
It's story. You know, that movie is really more story driven than anything else.
True. And
could they have told that story without the CG effects? Yeah, they probably could have.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, again, like I said, it's with a movie like The Abyss, it's more about the story than the effects. And really, if you think about it, other than the aliens,
right,
in The Abyss, there was no. Everything was pretty much practical effects.
It was kind of like they were water based, obviously. So
it was like the precursor to what they did in Terminator 2 with T-1000.
Yeah, with the T-1000 with that melting effect or whatever you call it.
If he were to go back and remaster that and redo the effects in that, I think it would be a slight improvement, but it wouldn't be a major improvement.
T2 still holds up because the story holds up and the effects still hold up.
The only thing about the effects that don't really hold up, and it really kind of looked odd even back, you know, in the scene you're going to say.
Are you going to say in the hallway?
No. I'm just saying, like when the T-1000 like recoalesces into his humanoid form, and then he's completely silver, and then he pauses for a second, and then he turns color.
Well, I think what it was, they were trying to show a glitch there because he kind of glitches, and that was intentional because he was.
It was intentional because the technology wasn't to the point where they could do it without doing that.
Well, I know, but it works into the storyline of it because he was kind of like that was actually pretty traumatic for even though that's what that Terminator does. But I was reading something because I'm in one of the Terminator Facebook groups, Terminator 2, well, Terminator 2, whatever, Facebook groups, and somebody had asked that question, well, how come, because the T-800 Terminator, has the computer components, whatever, chips and stuff like that, but the T-1000 doesn't have that because it's the I call it like a metamorphic alloy, and so it's kind of like what we would call maybe like Borg nanobots or something to that, maybe something like that.
No, nanobots was Genesis.
This
one was the T-1000 was liquid metal.
It's liquid metal, but the way they were explaining it, they said that this was in one of the books or something they had on it that I haven't read. They were trying to explain, at least somebody was trying to explain on there in that group that they don't have a long like shelf life, whatever that is in that alloy of the T2. So they can't really, they can only they can keep going back and forth, and doing shapes and mimicking whatever they copy a person or whatever, but they don't have they can't last like 100 years that the 800 series could last on their power cells that they have. So just because it's kind of like hardware versus almost like software, hardware that's almost like software, right. If that makes sense. But anyway, so I could talk all day about Terminator, but that's not why we're here. Let's talk about
not off topic because that's what we do.
We get off topic, but it's always very, very pointed and energetic. We've got a lot of between you. We have many years of knowledge on a lot of topics. And anyway,
dirty topic.
X-Men 97. I do have one pet peeve, and it's really nobody's fault. It's nothing that could have been done differently other than recasting a person. And I'm glad they didn't recast the person, so I'm getting used to this. And what that is Rogue's voice. I love that they brought all the original voice actors back that were alive and were still able to do it. And, kudos to them. But the lady who does Rogue's voice, she's obviously, 27, 30 years older since...
Right.
And her voice, you can tell, has aged. And she's doing that Southern Belle kind of accent that Rogue has. Sounds almost like it sounds like an older lady trying to sound like a Southern girl. And
yes.
And it almost sounds kind of...
It does kind of take you out of it a little bit.
It sounds kind of baby doll-ish or something. I don't know how to describe it. But I'm getting used to that. I'm like, if that's my only complaint, which that is my only complaint, then I am fine.
I will say this. It's not anywhere near as bad as Ciucevich trying to do a Southern accent.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's true.
She is so bad at that.
Well,
sorry, Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
Your wife doesn't do a good Southern accent. Because I know Kevin Bacon watches.
Damn, now Kevin Bacon's not going to watch us anymore. I guess he can't come on and dance Footloose with me.
There goes the one view.
There goes that one view, I know. So we're talking about X-Men 97. My overall thing, without being too hokey, it's exceptional. When I'm doing the X, for those not watching the video, it's excellent. It really is all that. I could have not been happier. And another thing that makes me super over the moon, excited and happy is finally, the last time we saw this was, X-Men the Animated Series in 1996. We saw Cyclops treated with the respect that he deserves, not this little punked out little guy that gets beat up in every film and live action.
That action sequence at the beginning of episode 1 where he comes in, oh my God, it was amazing.
Yes. And now for me, so far of the X-Men 97 series, and maybe even all of it, the original animated series and X-Men 97, when the Sentinel tears the plane apart and they just go into free fall, every member of the team, and Scott does that Cyclops, he does the he does the Captain America no parachute thing where he just dives. And
I'll see you at the bottom.
I did not see that coming. And great suspense in this show, great writing, it's everything. But when he does that, and then he does the optic blast, excuse me, my level went out there. I don't understand how the physics of it work with an optic blast like that. You may have to explain that to me. But he lets loose the greatest like optic blast. That would look so great on the big screen. I'd jump out of my seat in the theater, and it takes him to the ground.
Blast, a lot of people, who haven't read a lot of X-Men,
right,
and just coming into it, they think, well, Cyclops shoots lasers out of his eyes. It's not. It's concussive force. That apparently now they've kind of retconned that. It's concussive force from an alternate dimension.
Wow.
So apparently now Cyclops' eyes are portals to an alternate dimension.
Well, I don't know about that part, but
I don't know about that either. But it's concussive force.
Yeah.
So concussive force. He's shooting that blast down to the ground, so it's going to slow him because it's pushing back.
And his knees don't seem to mind that awesome superhero landing, right? Like Deadpool says, no. Here comes a superhero landing.
They're in the prime of their lives, so it doesn't matter.
And he's just not this. He is the team leader, the statistician. That scene where he's fighting him in the warehouse, and he's using his optic blast to propel himself backwards, and he spins around, and then he's just hand-to-hand combat with people. This was the kind of respect that I've been looking for ever since the animated series, because when I started watching in the 90s, it started in 92, so I would have been 22, and I'm about to turn 54, so wow. That's a long time ago. And I remember right before Wolverine was becoming like the big thing, This is
Wolverine was always
but
he was huge going into the 90s. He was huge in the 80s.
Well, he was, but he wasn't to the point where we get to later on, and then when Hugh Jackman comes on board in 2000.
When Wolverine really blew up in the comics and really in pop culture was about...
It was during the X-Men the animated series, because we had X-Men 75, where Magneto rips out the adamantium.
It was about 86. He was already one of the most popular X-Men by 86.
But I'm telling you,
Frank Miller, the author, same guy that wrote The Dark Knight Returns for Batman, he wrote that 4-issue miniseries for Wolverine, and that's where we get the Wolverine quote, I'm the best there is at what I do, but what I do isn't very nice. Anytime you hear, that's where that comes from. Yeah. From that Frank Miller.
But for me, I wasn't into X-Men in the 80s. I was probably into Spider-Man, Superman, stuff like that. I wasn't as big into the X-Men in the 80s, but after, during the animated series, Wolverine became much larger into the 90s, and in the comics and for people that weren't ardent, for people that weren't like everyday comic book enthusiasts, which I wasn't at that time, at least when it came to X-Men. But that made me go out, I liked the Wolverine character, have nothing wrong with them, but especially the dynamic between him and Scott, the kind of almost adversarial thing.
Yes.
But which is still there. Logan needs to get over it, but the thing with Jean and Scott. But
that'll never happen.
It's fine, though. It's fine. I'm good with it. But Scott, for me, Cyclops, was my favorite character going into X-Men, the animated series. And that's the only time I ever saw him be the leader that he's supposed to be. He is like Wolverine says in one of the newer episodes, he goes, this whole Boy Scout thing of yours, which Boy Scout is, he did call him that, but that's also an homage in a way to Superman, who's the ultimate Boy Scout. But in the X-Men lore, it was good to see that Boy Scout, that leader, that tactician, and the way he, to me, my X-Men, when he, at the end of that jump out or falling out the plane, and then he's like, great work at the team, that the X-plane just got tore to smithereens midair by a sentinel. And and then they all land and like Rogue. The funny part is, oh, it's time to play Catch the X-Men.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
Let's talk about Storm for a minute. I want to talk about
Storm. Gosh. People know the comics of what happens. And by the way, if you for some reason haven't seen the first 2 episodes, you're going to see them. We're going to go straight out spoilers here. So spoiler alert. If you haven't seen them, come back later and watch or whatever. All 2 of you.
With Storm.
Oh my God, that it breaks my heart.
First of all, I'm not a fan of how they started her animation model. As far as, having the mohawk. Because if you follow her story in the comic book.
Isn't that Days of Future Past?
No.
Because we had that in X-Men the Animated Series.
Yes, it was. It was actually in season 1.
Was that season 1?
Yeah. And that's where they introduced Bishop.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I have something to say about Bishop too, but we'll get to that later. But I'm not. If you follow her story in the comic, there is a storyline where she does lose her powers. And at that point, that's where she takes on this, punk badass kind of attitude where she shaves all her hair off except for this big ass mohawk and starts wearing all this leather and belts and that's around the same time when she beats the crap out of Callisto for leadership of the Morlocks, and she's a leader. She has no powers, but she's still the leader of the X-Men.
Right.
And I really wish that they would have started her out, visually wearing, like her white suit with the yellow stripe,
after her losing her powers, transferring to that,
and then, transitioning into the mohawk,
maybe
bad girl kind of look, after she loses her power. And I really think that would have been much more impactful, even if people aren't realizing it, but they see, she's, beautiful just like she was in the original animated series. And then now she's lost her powers. She's lost her way. She's lost her identity. She's trying to find herself. And I think it would have played, I think it would have played a lot better with the story if they would have done that visually.
And these are small critiques. We still love it.
Yes. Yeah. It's not. She has a mohawk to begin with. I hate Storm now, and
right.
I'm done with
it's not that. Yeah. So I want to go back to this discussion about Storm because it's very vital and important to the series. But what are your overall impressions for seeing both episodes so far of X-Men 97?
I really enjoyed it. It really surprised me after, this big media blow up that we had just like a week before the show premieres, with the showrunner getting fired and, the thing about
crazy
Morph
being
and
non-binary.
That really didn't bother me so much as in the blurb that they gave for Morph about his unique relationship with Wolverine. That concerned me.
This is what concerns me too. I found myself at times, because I've probably watched both episodes maybe 5 to 6 times at the recording of this, at least, that I can remember counting. And one of those watchings, I was looking at Morph a little closer, because you look at different characters, you look at different things the more you see something. And there's parts where Morph automatically goes for Wolverine when he turns into Angel when they're falling out the plane. And then you see him later with Wolverine, and I'm like, is there body language going on there that, am I seeing something that isn't there, or an anticipation that there might be something between him?
I don't think so, because if you go back, I have gone back and I've started rewatching the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, with Morph, at least I've made it to like episode 1 of Days of Future Past. And so that's probably about halfway through, maybe a little more than halfway through season 1. So we know Morph doesn't come back until, you know, a couple seasons later.
So you made it to, you said the first part of Days of Future Past?
Yes.
Okay. Which is also excellent.
Yes. But, you know, the dynamic between Wolverine and Morph in like that first episode, you know, it kind of plays to what they're doing, to what they showed in, you know, the first couple of episodes of X-97.
Yeah.
And they're buddies, they're good friends.
Right.
There's nothing
questionable or romantic, yeah,
going on there.
And I will put this out there.
As the series progresses, and I hope I'm wrong, as the series progresses, that may change. And I hope that's not the case, because I really, it's gonna hurt.
It's character assassination of Wolverine's character, because there's no precedence for it.
The Disney brand more if it plays out like there's something romantic going on later on.
There's nothing wrong with that buddy camaraderie, and
I mean,
and we're not being phobic saying this in any way.
They're drinking buddies,
right?
It's just Wolverine is not that type of character. He's never been that type of character.
Never. And any of the comics are in how many years? 75 years of X-Men.
You know, I don't have problem with homosexual characters or non-binary characters.
Either.
It's not a thing of, it's, you know, we put it in there because of, you know, this agenda or this message. You know, that's a whole different thing. But if it's just a fact of the character just happens to be homosexual, or it's a shapeshifter that's non-binary, that I could care less.
Right.
It doesn't matter to me. And I think that kind of enrages a lot of people.
Right.
When you say it doesn't matter.
I'm all for representation. You know, if we talk about strong female characters, you won't find any stronger characters in comics than you'll find in Storm, Jean Grey. They're at Rogue. They're out front leading teams. Psylocke. Oh my gosh, we could go on.
You know, any of the X ladies, just about. Maybe not Dazzler so much.
But here's I think a point that I wanted to touch on, and of all the comics and all the superhero properties, Marvel, DC, X-Men lends itself to bigotry. Honestly, did you catch some people are trying to draw comparisons to January 6th, the insurrection there, to the trial of Magneto?
I don't.
I can see comparisons, but that would be there anyway because of the story of the trial of Magneto. But what I'm saying, if you ever had a universe that deals with people not being treated properly for their race, their color, their sex, whatever, it's the X-Men universe. And this would be the universe of all the places that Disney's gone woke and other comics and superhero iterations. This is the one universe where that would totally work. And if you had one character, on the X-Men team to be non-binary, Morph is a perfect choice. And here's why. Because Morph, you know, he can be male, female, it can be whatever he needs to be or wants to be in whatever situation. And I could totally see it would work perfectly if he is non-binary, and you know, if he chooses to be female or male or whatever of any character, it works for the character of Morph. It's in the name, Morph. He morphs into something different.
It's not an issue unless it's made an issue,
right?
And that goes both ways. Okay,
and I don't want to say this,
or the company can make an issue of it by trying to, push whatever.
Your identity isn't necessarily your sexual preference. A straight person, and I'm not saying this to upset anybody. That's not my intention. That's not where my heart is. But a straight person wouldn't say, "Oh, well, I'm going to do something that straight people do, or whatever. I'm going to do such and such, or here's my sex life." That's not part of your character. That you would say that. Han Solo doesn't have to say, "I'm heterosexual. I'm going to screw Princess Leia." You just kind of know it's going to happen, or whatever. Consenting adults. So
Han Solo.
That doesn't need to be part of a story. It doesn't add anything to the story. If anything, it detracts, and it does push some people away. And that's fine. That's their preference.
Right. But totally. It's different than it's serving the story.
Right.
Than checking off a box. And I know we've talked about, checking off boxes.
Right.
Plenty, not necessarily on a live stream.
Do we need more females in front of and behind the camera? Yes. Do we need more people of color running the studios and females?
But
yes, of course.
Let's not do it. Let's get talented people who are going to churn out quality entertainment that people are going to enjoy. And of course, you can't please all the people all the time.
You won't.
You're never going to make a show that everybody loves.
It's especially important when you're dealing with legacy characters. 50 to 75 years of X-Men. Wolverine's.
Yes.
Just because he's been written that way all that time doesn't mean they can't change it. But you don't fundamentally change a character. This is the whole idea with the Luke Skywalker thing. They turned him into what we would call, what Mark Hamill said, Jake Skywalker.
Yeah, Jake Skywalker.
Because Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi would have never given up. He would have never let he didn't fight that hard to get there to let the whole universe fall apart.
Never would have given in to this supposed impulse he had to kill his nephew, because
especially family.
Some darkness in him. Well, my God, Luke, look in the mirror.
And it just goes back to show people that are directing and writing stories, and we're not, as fans, we're not going to watch your films and we're not your TV series or whatever if you don't honor the characters, the true heart of who the characters are. Now, if it's written and they change a character in the comics, or even if you do it in a film, if that's integral to the story, that you change their preference, or they have an awakening and they decide that there's something different,
it has to make sense,
right,
for the character. Like, let's talk about the comics, for example.
Right.
In the comic books, Kurt Wagner, Nightcrawler,
yes,
in after post 2000 sometime,
a Catholic spiritual X-Men.
He becomes a priest, a Catholic priest.
Yes.
He's still an X-Man. He goes on missions. He lives at the mansion. He hangs out with mutants, but on Sundays he goes out to the local, I don't want to say parish.
Yeah.
You can get the right word. Is it parish?
Parish. Yeah.
And he preaches a sermon.
Yeah. And does he kill people? Yes.
Even though he's committing violence as an X-Man, he's doing it in order to help safeguard lives.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
And so, but he had been building up to that for a while.
Right. So
it made sense for the character. Now, it turned out him getting chosen to become a priest and stuff was part of some anti-mutant plot. And anyway, I'm not going to get into all that because I don't remember all that. That was really during not the greatest run in the comics, but at the time it made sense for the character.
Right.
Because he was very religious. And that's kind of how in X2, X-Men United, that's kind of how they portrayed.
Right. He had his rosary beads. He was praying.
Religious character.
he had that wonderful interaction on the X-plane with Storm.
With Storm.
Yeah. It's really, really good moments and moments of faith, and you need faith. And, but now if we have, let's say, the Morph character, if it becomes episodes where it's just I'm now non-binary.
Episode of him talking about being non-binary and making a big deal about it, yeah, that's not going to work.
I mean, and if it's one episode, if he has that, but if that becomes his thing, like we're going in the field more, well, I'm non-binary now, and and he starts talking about his sexual life, then we're like, okay, that really has no place with the mission.
No, it doesn't. It has no place in the show. Unless
bad writing.
Story, and right. I can't see where his gender orientation is going to
matter in a mission,
affect the story one way or the other.
Right. I mean,
and a lot of people are talking about, and this is one thing that kind of bugs me about it. And and I'm not saying people aren't born believing they're the wrong gender. I mean, that happens. There's people who are born with both sets of sexual organs, and the parents have to make a decision on for health reasons mostly, one sex or the other, one gender or the other. And a lot of times it's not correct, and so that person is quote unquote and I'm not trying to make this sound like it's condescending or talking down to people or anything like that. But with mutants in the Marvel universe, you are born human with the X gene, right? The X gene does not activate until right around puberty.
Right.
So
usually it's something that's very strenuous, like we say Magneto when he was in the concentration camps.
Right. So it happened early.
Right. It happened earlier for him. And
as a general rule, puberty is about the time the X gene decides to
manifest in that way.
Yes, manifest itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm just, making an assumption here for Morph. So Morph was born human. He was born either one gender or the other, most likely.
Right.
So when his power manifested, did that cause him confusion? And I can understand how it, but we don't know. But it's not like he was born with shape-changing powers to say he was born non-binary.
Unless they go and retcon that, but then that would go in the face of
the history of Morph, because he's not, other than in the Age of Apocalypse, he's not a comic book character. He was created specifically for the animated series, the first episode to get killed.
Right.
That
it was supposed to be, I think, Warpath that was died in that, but they didn't want to. And Native American, they didn't want to.
Not Warpath.
No, his brother or something, or
yeah, his older brother, Warpath's older brother. Because Warpath is
one of them,
the one from X-Force.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
It's an X-Force. Thunderbird is who you're thinking of.
Thunderbird. Yeah, thank you. And that's fine. Either way, how they did the story and having Morph. Now he was also known as Changeling. I don't know if that was in the comics later or Morph was.
I don't remember. Again, other than in the Age of Apocalypse, I don't remember.
I think I've read that. So there was a character similar to him. I thought it was him, but I could be wrong.
Well, how Morph looks in X-Men 97 now. That's how the Age of Apocalypse Morph looked, except he was wearing. Like an evil uniform.
Yeah, like the white kind of face.
Facially, that's the way he looked.
Right. And, so, I mean, it could be interesting to find out why he's non-binary. I mean, even if they did an episode
But only if it drives
the overall story. And it's Sinister. Here's a thought that an interesting way, because Mr. Sinister is a big part of it. He may not have been born. He may have been created by Sinister.
That's true.
Sinister may have been trying to mix a male and female of Scott and Jean's thing. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Or messing around with other mutants and powers and stuff. And
remember, I don't know if you ever read X-Men The End. But X-Men The End,
I'm not sure.
It's I guess you could say it's kind of an alternate future where it's pretty much the last mission of the X-Men. They did a whole series of The End.
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I read it.
Or Avengers, and it was a whole thing. It was supposed to be like at the end of the superhero age, or whatever you want to call it. And it turns out that Gambit was created by Sinister.
The red eyes? That kind of explains it.
His red eyes come from because he was created by Sinister mixing his own genetics, Mr. Sinister's, Mr. Essex. I forget what his first name was.
Nathaniel Essex.
Nathaniel, yeah. So he took his own DNA, he mixed it with the Summers DNA, and that's where Gambit came from, according to that book, which I think, I think that was probably something that they were planning to reveal sooner, because that book was written by Chris Claremont,
right,
who we all know is pretty much the writer of every X-Men story that is
good.
I love, because he wrote the books for so long.
Right.
But I don't think that got to play out for him, because in the 90s, when the artist spotlight happened, if that's what you want to call it, but when the artists exploded at the time, and we got the new X-Men book and all that, the last of the regular series that he wrote were X-Men 1, 2, and 3. That story where they go to asteroid M and try to stop Magneto and cause it to fall back to Earth, and everybody thinks Magneto's dead for about a year.
And does that lead into, is that part of X-Men 75 when he takes Wolverine's adamantium out? Magneto does, or
are you talking about the Fatal Attraction storyline?
That was Fatal Attraction.
Yes, that kind of leads into it, because everybody thinks Magneto's dead because they
he becomes Joseph, I think, the character.
That's after the Onslaught stuff.
Oh, okay, that is, yeah. Which I love the Onslaught. See, for me, that was the whole bread and butter, was X-Men animated series, and then straight to the comics. And then through the 90s with a lot of that through Schism, which was good. And what was the one that with the Asgardians were?
Are you talking about where Norman Osborn took over S.H.I.E.L.D. and turned it into Hammer, and then Asgard came back from Ragnarok, but it was floating over Oregon or something? I
think so. And because then you had like versions of Asgardian, like the Hulk had Asgardian armor.
No, you're talking about Fear Itself.
Fear Itself. That was a good run. I enjoyed that as well.
The ancient gods were coming back or something.
I still have like all of those comics. So all the Age of Apocalypse stuff. X-Man was one of my favorite characters out of Age of Apocalypse. The whole.
See, when I was originally reading comics, about the time Age of Apocalypse came out was about the time I was kind of getting out of it a bit. So I never originally, I've read some of the stuff for Age of Apocalypse since then, but I did not read it originally.
I think I was there through all of that, all the way through Onslaught. Onslaught was probably I love the Age of Apocalypse and the Alpha and Omega that booked into.
A lot of what ticked me off with it is like just the whole quality of the comics at that point was going downhill. I wasn't enjoying because all the top tier artists were, going over to Image and starting their own studios or joining up like Jim Lee or
but it was a golden age as well for a lot. You had the lenticular covers and the X-Men, the bullet ones.
There's no doubt, like that first from like 91
to like,
I want to say that's 91. It may have been a little earlier. It may have been early as 90. We're starting with the death of Superman.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Which
it really kind of changed the landscape of comics.
I've got them all back here on my bookcase here.
You all of a sudden had all these people who wanted to be comic book speculators and buying them because they're going to be worth something, not realizing that they printed a bajillion copies of these top tier books like Superman 75 and Action Comics 500 and releasing 14 different covers for everything and then that also gets into the embossed covers and there you go,
the Death of Superman. This is
the embossed covers and the foil covers and the.
When did you say that Death of Superman was?
I want to say it was like 90, 91,
90,
somewhere
92.
92. I was close.
Superman.
And because you had that, and that really
this was the beginning of the end. This is the Mount Olympus of comics at that time.
That event really inflated DC's super flagging sales. I mean, their sales were tanking at that point until they put out Superman number 75 or the stuff leading up to it, because they were all in the press. We're going to kill Superman. We're going to kill Superman. Superman's going to die, and just kind of building it up. And I think it was a good event, and it was a good event for comics as a whole because it really re-energized
the whole comic industry. But like you said, and I was going to get to that earlier.
Without that, there would have been no artists blow up. There wouldn't have been an Image Comics.
Exactly.
Well, you made a good. On the other hand, it wouldn't give us event comics like we have today, where you have to buy 50 issues in a month in order to keep up with the entire storyline.
Well, I fell in that hole with Flashpoint, which was awesome. I bought every single comic that was.
I won't say I bought everyone, but
I pretty much had at least one of every character that was involved in all that, and that was one of the greatest runs. But
the New 52, I won't like everybody else. I was really interested to see what they were.
You and I were against it at the beginning, and then it worked for about a year.
Some things were not like Batman.
Yeah, it worked for about a year.
Thing.
Yeah,
for Batman.
I remember it worked about a year for you and I, because we were back on because on the Digital Man Cave we were talking at podcast. We were talking about it.
But it was an exciting thing. It pissed me off though, of the fact that they couldn't wait to run the storyline before Action Comics reached its 1,000th issue, not episode, but issue. And because even though Action Comics 1,000 has come out now, it's not.
It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything because it wasn't a continuous
run
of that numbering.
Right. I was collecting, I don't know which one, if it was Action Comics or whatever, when we had the red and the blue Superman through that, and we got to like 300 or something like that, and then it switched over or something, or they restarted it, or I can't remember, but
I don't remember. I just remember like one had electricity powers, and
that was red and blue, yeah, Superman, and then that was interesting, but yeah, it wasn't Superman.
Really didn't work.
And anyway,
it.
like you said, and I was going to say earlier, we got to a white hot point where everybody was buying comics. The death of Superman really energized all comics.
Comics industry.
And then also, we get the crossovers, but then just like Hollywood, something's hot. Let's put out so many of it that we run everything into the ground, and they oversaturated the market. Everything plummeted. Comic box stores started going out.
All the big issues were, overprinted in the tens of thousands.
Exactly. And then eventually that led to comic book stores. They had all this product, wouldn't sell, and then comic book stores started going out. And then we get the rise of the digital comics, which really were a death blow to the comic book stores.
It really killed most of the physical stores for comics. Now, some of the bigger places like I want to say Mile High Comics, but I don't think they're around anymore. But there's that place in Manhattan that's got several stores, and they have an online presence as well. And I just cannot think of the name of it. Well, most of that's because I hadn't really,
dealt with that
into that stuff.
Well, I did digital comics for a while. I might have did that a couple years or so, and then I just kind of got out of comics. The comics just became kind of boring.
And it's not the same, but if you're it's almost reading digital comics is almost shit. I forgot what comparison I was going to make now.
It's like going to a library. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't remember what I was trying to say now.
Well, maybe it was something like albums. I attribute it to albums. I remember having albums, and I don't have my albums anymore. And I was like, well, albums are going away. I get CDs and all that good stuff. And from there we go to streaming and all this, whatever we're doing now. Yeah, streaming and everything else. Like MP3 downloads, and you were doing streaming and all that stuff. But I think it's kind of like that. There's something that's missed about having the comic book and seeing the panels and the artwork and the coloring, and it's like having an album, a vinyl album, and reading the liner notes or learning the lyrics. It's not the same as in the digital format.
It's not the same. Here, I remember what comparison I was going to make now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like reading a digital comic is just like buying the trade paperback. You do it. You're not doing it because you're a collector of the issues. You're doing it for the story. You're doing it because you want to read the story.
Interesting.
And that's really what I compare it to. Yes, there is a bit of a collecting component to digital comics, but not like it is for physical comics. And when you buy a trade paperback where it just puts this, it's got the collection of that one storyline in there, you're just buying it because you want to read the story. You're not buying it because it's collectible, because trade paperbacks rarely increase in price.
Like I'm looking at and I got this later. I have the 4 books of Age of Apocalypse. I have some of the original comics that, who knows, might be worth something. I don't know. But I ended up going back and getting the Marvel, you almost call them omnibuses, but they're not that thick. But
I know what you're talking about.
They're like the collected comics.
Omnibuses, and there's 6 of them.
Yeah, and so I have that, and then like the Onslaught one I have, and so the Superman Doomsday, which is like this thick, that was collecting all the comics. So it was nice to own the one thing instead of having all the other stuff. It felt like downsizing.
Yeah. And like I said, if you're more interested in the story and reading the story than being a collector of comic books, then that's kind of, to me, what digital comics are for.
You can do much more in the digital space to animate those comics, with the technology we have now. But it's almost a different thing. You're right, because it's not quite the same as reading it. And like X-Men, I guess it's X-Men 7. Maybe it's not 75. That iconic cover that folded out that has Magneto here and his like magnetic bubble, and you have all the X-Men kind of lined up fighting him. Which one is that?
When you go back to X-Men, that was X-Men #1.
Okay.
And you got to remember there were 5
variants of that.
Variants of X-Men #1.
True.
You had the first 4 variants, which were just sections of that overall
picture. Yeah.
That you could line up together.
Right.
To see the whole thing. And then there was the 5th one that was like you were talking about, the gatefold cover.
Yeah.
And, you know, back in the day, and I'm sure you did the same thing back in the day, I bought every single damn cover there was.
I did. I probably still have them.
I do. They're in a long box somewhere.
Yeah.
Looking back on it now, the only one, which was the hardest one to get, was that 5th, the gatefold cover. That would have been the only one that I purchased. Right. Looking back on it now, but caught up in the craze of it. That X-Men #1, it's going to be worth some money because it's X-Men #1, and right. Well, I didn't realize they printed 100 billion copies of it.
Exactly, but the thing is, I mean, I never expected to get rich or anything from any of that. Oh, no, and it wasn't that. I know you didn't either. But if you're a true comic book geek or whatever, I don't like the word nerd, so I'll say geek. You would buy one, and nice, and you nice and wrapped up, and then you'd have one that you'd actually read. So one to collect.
I tried not to do that. Now, there were times when I did buy double because we'll talk about, I want to say it was Action Comics 500, where Jonathan Kent has a heart attack. This is just right after Superman 75.
Okay.
I want to say, or maybe it was a couple of months afterward. Mm-hmm. Superman 75. But I think it was like the next month. Action Comics 500, and Jonathan has a heart attack, and he's up in heaven. He sees Clark, or he thinks he sees Clark. But anyway, that issue came like Superman 75. I don't know if you remember. You could get the newsstand edition, or there was a special polybagged edition that was, and you couldn't see inside the polybag. It was a black solid, like a black trash bag, almost. It was that
I don't know
dark.
If I remember that one.
And it had the only thing it had on it was the bloody S logo.
Okay, now that yes, I do remember that.
But you could get the newsstand edition that didn't come in that you could, it was open, you could read or whatever.
It was considerably less.
But yes, it was considerably less.
In the price.
But the polybagged edition came with several things, other than the book in the bag. It had like a black armband with the bloody S logo on it. Maybe it was just a red S on the black band. I can't remember. I don't think I ever opened mine up. Mm-hmm. It's still polybagged inside a comic bag with board and what. I mean, it was just that kind of thing. It did get you to buy more than one copy of a book because you wanted to keep that one sealed because you thought, well, I keep this one sealed. It's never been read. It'll be worth more money.
Right.
Except they've printed a bazillion, gajillion copies of it. So it will never be worth anything.
Right.
But, I mean, it was a great time in comics, even to collect them, even if you did buy more than one copy of some. It was a great time. The stories were good. I won't necessarily say all the stories were great, but the stories were good, at least for comics that had actual writers to them. When you get to stuff like when Image first started and the individual studios, it was more about the artwork and keeping the rights to what you created.
Oh.
It was much more about that during that time than it was, at least over at Image, than actually making a good book. Except for, I will say, you know, I like Spawn pretty well. I thought a lot of that was very well thought out. Todd McFarlane always had his stuff out on time.
Yeah.
Always. If there was an issue of Spawn coming, you could know that it would be every month that book would be coming out on time. The other guys, Jim Lee, Eric Larson, not as much. Especially like Jim Lee was notoriously his 4-issue run of Wildcats, which always, to me, there always being like an X-Men knockoff.
Huh.
You know, I mean, my God, it took a year to get like 4 issues out. Now I might be exaggerating that a little bit, but it just seemed like
it felt like
it took forever between issues. And when you got the new issue, you had to go back and read the old issues because it had been so long since it came out.
I don't think people would have that kind of patience these days to wait that long for a story, you know?
They didn't have that. They didn't have the patience to wait for it.
I was always thankful. I said whatever stars had to line up for the pandemic to hit in 2020 and not 2019. Can you imagine what would have happened? And I've said this before. If between Infinity War and Endgame, we had to wait till 2022 or something, or 23, or even this year. Can you imagine?
Thanos at the end of Infinity War, Thanos really did snap and kill half the population.
Oh my God, that would have been too real, right? But thank God that wrapped up Endgame in 2024. I mean, in 19.
Pandemic rioting in the street.
Yeah, they're like, y'all worried about that. We're worried about what's going to happen with Thanos.
Yeah, screw this pandemic.
Oh my gosh. How do we make?
But anyway, back to X-Men 97. I know we kind of got way.
It's all related. You have some action figures.
I do.
I can show off.
And they actually, neither one of them have really made an appearance in the show yet. And here's Nightcrawler, and I'm not a big fan of this.
It's an interesting look with the hair. That's what my hair looks like when I get out of the shower.
Actually, what I plan to do, because this one has the new pinless elbows and knees, and they're a bit stronger than the pinned versions of it.
Okay.
And he does have some butterfly articulation in the shoulders. I know you can't really see it.
Yeah, just move a little because your camera's just a little slow. Move a little slower when you're showing something off. Yeah. So you can see it.
You know, he's got new sculpted arms here, like,
oh, cool.
Excuse me, the glove part on the previous figure was just kind of painted on there.
Mm-hmm.
But this one it's actually sculpted in.
That's cool.
And the same thing goes for the boot part. Now it doesn't have the cuts here like they might normally have, where you can twist it at the top of the boot.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't mind that. It's okay. But what I'm going to try to do with this one is see if I can pop the head of the previous figure onto this one. I see the hair from this angle, it looks okay. It's just this big swoop.
It looks like a Tim Drake kind of Batman look.
Kinda.
I mean, Robin look.
And so the other thing about it, you know, this is all that you can do with the tail. Is at the base of it. It just
spins around. Okay.
Yeah, I would have kind of liked it if they'd have done like something bendy with it. That would have been cool.
Yeah, articulate it.
You know, that can cause other issues later down the road.
I suppose.
And then the other, which kind of made an appearance at the end of episode 2, is Madeline Pryor,
the Goblin Queen.
The Goblin.
And that's the new X-Men 97 figure, correct?
This is the X-97 one, yes.
Wow.
And you can kind of tell from like the hair, it doesn't, you know, it might not be as detailed as a regular
now
Marvel Legends.
Her complexion Is it your light on your camera, or does she look a little pasty white like a vampire?
She is quite pasty.
And if you look at the figure from where I'm looking from my view, it almost looks like a Batwoman thing. It almost looks like that part that's her skin looks like the bat symbol, doesn't it?
You look at the
cape here, even
kind of like that, and yeah, the chest that's showing here kind of gives that Batwoman almost.
In X-Men 97, the name of this episode as well, Mutant Liberation Begins, the very last scene is Madeline Pryor showing up at the door of the X-Men, and the look on Jean's face, somebody has to make a meme of that, and Scott's like, what? And she's like, oh, she looks like she's having a spasm. She goes, wait a minute, that looks like me. Who the heck is she?
You know, at first I was thinking, well, crap, which one of them is real? But then I was thinking,
no.
Well, Jean was using her powers, and Madeline never had any powers. So Madeline had the one that showed up.
This could be considered spoilers to some, but is that actually... So I'll say spoilers in case this spoils something. My question is that the Cable was the baby that was delivered, right? Nathan?
Yes. Well,
Nathaniel Charles Summers.
In the comics, Nathan Summers was the child of Scott and Madeline.
I thought so.
Not Scott and Jean.
Okay.
So Nathan was Scott's biological child, but not Jean.
Oh my gosh.
She ended up, like, kind of adopting him.
What if
but
all along it's been Jean on the X-Men 97 back to the animated series since she came back from Phoenix or whatever? What if that's been at some point?
Well, I said I thought that originally that maybe
the Jean's at the door, and then Madeline's been with Scott the whole time.
Madeline didn't have any powers until the Inferno crossover, where she was granted powers by demons from Limbo.
Right.
And then she became the Goblin Queen. But the whole thing about Madeline, it was in the comics, everybody thought Jean was dead.
Right.
At the end of the Phoenix, whole Phoenix, the Phoenix, Dark Phoenix, all that, they thought she was dead and all that. When in reality, it was the Phoenix itself who died on the blue area of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And Phoenix had taken Jean's place when they were, I can't remember exactly what it was. They were in space, I think, to destroy a Sentinel base in space.
Well, they were on remember in the X-Men 90
Lake, and that's when the Phoenix Force put Jean in like a suspended animation cocoon.
Well, on X-Men 97, they mentioned that when she was talking to Aurora, Jean was talking to Storm, she said, "Oh, I haven't worn this outfit since the blue side of the moon," or whatever she said. And I wonder if that is a shout out. Maybe that's Madeline, but she's thinking she's Jean.
Well, I will have to wait and see, once I get to that point in the original show,
mm-hmm.
to see how that, because I don't remember how it played out on the animated.
I'm gonna have to go back on Disney Plus and watch it and find out.
We're getting off the topic there, Madeline Pryor.
Sorry.
Scott meets a woman named Madeline Pryor. He retires from the X-Men. Right. When Storm took over leadership and lost her powers and all that whole thing was going on. She had challenged Scott for leadership of the X-Men. She won. So he decided to go to Alaska and be a pilot.
Right.
Well, he met another pilot there named Madeline Pryor, and she looked strikingly almost exactly like Jean Grey. And that's because she was a clone created by Mr. Sinister.
Right.
To, ensnare Scott because he wanted that DNA.
He wanted that DNA in the child.
He wanted the combination of the Summers and Gray mutant DNA. He wanted that child, which ends up being Cable. And so when
where does Strife come into the thing? I know it's much later.
He's another clone
by Apocalypse. Did Apocalypse?
Yeah, by Apocalypse.
Okay, but of the adult Cable.
Right.
Okay.
No, I don't know if it was the adult. I think it may have been a clone that was made when they were younger.
Okay.
Like not a baby, but
it was hidden away, kind of same thing.
3-4 years old, maybe something like that.
Right.
But it was a clone that maybe even Sinister made it for Apocalypse. I don't recall. That's a whole.
I remember the Askani tribe that Cable was sent to the future. Askani tribe.
Yeah.
Because that's when I thought he was when Cable's a baby, he gets Apocalypse infects him, and then they have to send him in the future to the.
When he was a baby, the reason they had to send him to the future
because of the techno-organic virus.
Techno-organic virus, Apocalypse had him infected with it. But Strife was a clone without the techno-organic virus because Apocalypse wanted him to be at his full
potential. Telepathically.
Cable could never reach his full potential because he was constantly using his powers to fight off the organic virus from spreading any further than what it had, like his arm and his eye, and stuff. But Madeline, then when Jean Grey came back from the dead, the Fantastic Four were in that lake or whatever, and they found this cocoon, and Jean comes out of it, and we thought you were dead, so they called. I want to say it was Warren Worthington the third, Angel.
Right.
And so, Angel always had a thing for Jean.
Okay.
And so she was worried about Scott. So he wasn't planning on calling Scott. He wanted to keep Jean all to himself. So eventually they ended up
oopsies.
They ended up contacting Scott, letting him know. So he dropped everything, including his marriage to Madeline, which they had got married and had baby Nathan. He dropped everything to run back to New York, and that's where they formed the original X Factor, which was supposed to be there was X Factor and there were the X Terminators, and they were both of them. The X Terminators was their public face, and they were quote unquote mutant hunters.
Wow.
They wanted people to turn mutants into them, and then they would go as the X Terminators, get them and take them back to the X Factor and train them. Not, they weren't hunting them to kill them.
Right.
But that's what the public thought, that they were terminating mutants. That's what the public thought.
Right.
But that was all a thing set up by Cameron Hodge, who was Warren's lawyer, who ended up being a bad guy. And, he was one of the main villains during that whole Genosha extinction agenda storyline. But that's another thing. But anyway, so he left Madeline. Madeline, I don't remember how. She ends up joining up with the X-Men. And even though she had no power, she was just kind of hanging out with the X-Men because she had nowhere else to go.
Okay.
And that was, I want to say it was right before the Fall of the Mutants, which was the storyline where at the end of Fall of the Mutants, the public, pretty much everybody thought the X-Men were dead. And they went to that base in the outback. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But
it gets very convoluted.
During that time, there was a romance, or at least because Alex Summer was on that X-Men team, Havoc, Scott's brother.
Right.
Well, he had a thing for Madeline.
What was Polaris? Was she in him?
This
I think
was. I don't know. She
Lana
hadn't
Dane?
been. She hadn't been in a thing for a while.
Okay, so she wasn't in the picture.
They had broken up.
Okay.
And she was not on that X-Men team.
Okay.
This was the era when it was Storm and Wolverine and Havoc and Dazzler and Rogue and Colossus.
Okay.
And I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. But this was like that late mid 80s, like maybe 87, 88.
Okay.
That team.
Right.
And Psylocke, that's the one I was forgetting. Psylocke. But not when she was in what you might think of now. This is when she was in the body where she's Captain Britain's sister, Betsy.
Betsy Braddock. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she was her original.
I remember that. And she wasn't with Warren yet. Correct?
No. That wasn't until
that was much later.
After when X Factor and X-Men joined back together.
Okay.
But anyway, and it was during that time that Madeline, she was rightly so feeling pretty abandoned and let down, and
right.
And she pretty much hated Scott's guts. And that was about the time that
he left her with a baby just to go get his undead wife.
Yeah, and well, no, it wasn't even. It wasn't. He wasn't. They weren't even married.
That's true.
Before then, they didn't get married until God.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
94 maybe.
I think I have that issue. I was like, I made a big deal of it, and I showed it to one of my friends at the time. I was like, "This is a great story." And he wasn't a comic book collector, and so he's like, he did not care. And I was like, "Okay, you're not geeky like I thought you were."
The whole Inferno thing happened, and I don't know if you probably weren't reading around that time, but it's like
I'm trying to look to see if I have that comic.
Demons of Limbo. Which I don't want to get off on another comic book tangent here, but I'm going to have to. Colossus's younger sister, Illyana.
Illyana and the Legacy Virus?
The one, no, this is way before Legacy Virus.
Okay, but Strife had something to do with the Legacy Virus, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He's the one that released the Legacy Virus.
I thought so. Okay.
But his little sister, she was part of the New Mutants, and her power was teleportation. Well, the way her teleportation worked is she left the normal, what you would think of as the normal reality. She went to limbo and then moved a certain short space in limbo to reappear, wherever in the normal world. And some, I want to say in X-Men Evolution, they explained that Nightcrawler's teleportation works very similar.
Is this where it goes into a different dimension kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That he goes to limbo in order to teleport. But anyway, a bunch of demons live there in limbo, and they want to come and take over the earth. And so at one point, Illyana, previous to this, she was kidnapped into limbo, raised by some wizard there. And so when she came back, she spent a short amount of time just in limbo. When she came back, she was a teenager rather than a little girl. But anyway,
wow.
During Inferno, the demons wanted to come to take over Earth. They wanted to leave limbo, come to Earth,
right,
and take everything over. And to a certain degree, they were doing that during the event. If you have never read it, I do recommend it. It's probably one.
I'll have to look it up. It's been a while.
Yes.
I remember parts of what you're saying. Of that.
And so anyway, by the end of it, I'm not by the end of it, but anyway, some of the head demons there, they kind of seduced Madeline with power to get her revenge because they wanted her to help them invade, help get them into the Earth dimension.
Right.
And, they pretty much corrupted her with power, turned her into the Goblin Queen. She was even going to use Nathan to help open the portal, which would, they had to have 13 mutant children to open the portal or something like that. And they would all die, once the portal was open and the demons all came into the Earth realm.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah. Damn demons.
Stupid demons.
But anyway, by the end of that, she ends up dying, and Ileana ends up being turned back into the little girl that, she was the age she would have been had she not been kidnapped into the limbo dimension. And anyway, that's a whole nother thing too.
Yeah, it can get convoluted.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, and that's one of the things that makes comics during that time period probably some of my favorite. During the 80s, about 83 through about 94, 95. And not to misunderstand, there was some good stuff before that, but when you hit about 84, you got the Secret Wars going on, and it just kind of snowballs from there. And the Mutant Massacre is probably the best. I can't see it.
That's exactly what I pulled out. Mutant Massacre.
Yeah, that is probably the best of at least the X-Men crossovers. I want to say it's probably the best of the...
How much do you think this costs? This is a collection of all of it.
Trade paperback. What kind of paper's in? Is it like that premium thick paper?
I think it's the nice colors.
I don't know. Probably about $20.
$24.95.
I was close.
And this was back in... I'm looking for a date on here when the Mutant Massacre occurred. I love that it has the different comics and how it ties together in there.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't looked at this in a while. I've really got to go back.
That's probably the best, at least of X-Men. I want to say it's probably the best
Chris Claremont
crossover event with the most long-lasting effects in Marvel Comics, because that is where Warren was trapped in the sewer by the Marauders, and they basically destroyed his wings.
Yeah, cut him off. It's pretty...
No, they had the medical people had to cut him off because they were too... I mean, you got to think his wings are like bird wings.
Right.
Their bones are hollow, and they were just crushed, and there was no way for them to
save it,
to save the wings. So
I'm feeling crazy here. I can't seem to find the date on this anywhere.
What's that?
Mutant
It's
Massacre.
about 1984.
84?
Might be as late as 85.
Because this one, I think, is an older, collection of it. So
it is. Yeah.
See, Thor was in this, and
Thor had a big part in it. Now that one didn't quite have the reach as far as issues that it was in as the next big event, which was Inferno.
Yeah, but this had 2, 4,
Thor and Power Pack
6,
and
7, 8. It looks like 11 total
X-Men,
comics.
X-Factor. Yeah,
if you can see any of that.
But I really want to say that was probably the crossover with the longest effects, long-lasting effects of any of the crossovers, because of course we get Archangel out of that not long after by about X Factor number 25. In fact, I think
right. I was going to mention that. Yeah, Archangel came out of that. So one of the for me when I've learned about it, because I don't think I knew about it when it happened. You know, I probably honestly got that book from you. I wouldn't be surprised, or that collection, or I went and got it after I saw what you had, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like kind of real, you know.
Yeah. And like I said, that one was
brutal.
You know, they still presented it in a fashion that would be approved by the Comics Code Authority, because, of course, at that time,
right,
that was still the thing. So, you know, there were certain things that they couldn't do, like later on in X Factor, like maybe the next issue or whatever, after they cut his wings off, Warren's wings off, you know, he blows his brains out.
Oh dear.
If I remember, he committed suicide, and I want to say it was he blew his brains out. Now, of course, they can't
show that
in the comic, because now these days they could do it and get away with it, and nobody gives a shit.
Just like DC, the Killing Joke. Oh my gosh!
Authority has, you know, it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
It was well past its prime by the 80s anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to X-Men 97.
Okay, I know. Hey, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to stay on the live stream. Just can you talk about something? Talk about your channel for a second, and I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
Okay.
And all that. So show some figures if you want to. And
if I can think of some stuff to say, I will.
Okay, I'll be back.
Say it. While I was talking about all this X-Men comic crap. But yes, I am the Digital Caveman. Digital Cavemann Presents is my channel where I do lots of action figure and action figure related reviews. And I've just gotten to the point where my channel is partially monetized. If you would care to check my channel out, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Ding the bell. Watch some videos. Join one of my memberships if it's right for you and you're in a position that you can do that. That's always awesome. And it's a race right now to see who's going to be first for memberships. So if you want to be first at something, you can sign up for memberships at Digital Cavemann Presents. And the address for that, of course, is youtube.com/@ capital D Digital Caveman with 2 N's /join. And I would really appreciate that. And if you know you can't do that, then just watch a bunch of videos. Just put a playlist on and go to town.
Yes, and I'm back. Yeah, check out Digital Cavemann's channel there, youtube.com /@ Digital Caveman.
While we're talking about all that, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel, Geek Homeworld. And because my friend Ed here, he needs all the subs he can get right now, because we're trying to get him at least partially monetized.
That would be nice.
And he can worry about $0 earned from 0 members, just like me.
Yay. I can share in your awesomeness. You have your little sound effects.
Yeah. That's one.
I've got some here, but I can't reach my Rodecaster Pro to get to it because I've got my laptop propped up here.
But back to X-Men 97. I promised we were going to get back and talk about Bishop. And I'm sorry, I keep waving this around. It's a scalpel that I use to work on.
Surgery? Oh, you do surgery?
Packages. I do surgery. I do surgery.
Are you Mr. Sinister secretly?
Yes. No, I just like cutting stuff. I don't care about genetics.
The name is Sinister, Mr. Sinister.
But I'll wave this instead. It's a flashlight, a pin light. So I'll wave that instead. Less dangerous. I'm not going to cut myself. I'm not going to cut anybody watching. or anything like that, because we don't want that to happen, because that would be a bad no-no.
No, that would be wrong.
YouTube frowns on that.
Yeah, like YouTube's even watching.
So anyway, I said we were going to get back to Bishop. We'll get back.
Bishop.
Let's talk about Bishop for a minute. We talked about Storm.
Finally, we got in X-Men '97. We get Morph gets he gets a credit up there in the opening, and so does Bishop. Finally,
yes, and I like the fact that the intro.
I know what you're going to say.
Is very true to the original, and then they're adding stuff to it as well.
Right, and extending the song just enough that it fits.
Let's talk about Bishop.
Well, one last thing, since we mentioned that the first episode, to me, my X-Men, Magneto isn't leading the team, so he doesn't get a card, his own card. Right. But
second episode he did.
Second episode they do. I think,
and I like that they did that. I like that.
I thought that was a nice touch, because he takes the two.
I don't think the song is exactly the same. I know that they changed it up just slightly. But it's not super noticeable. Right. It flows, to me, it flows just the same. But anyway.
And one last thing, voice actors, I noticed Cyclops, the gentleman that did that, he passed away apparently.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the voice actor, kudos to the voice actor who's doing Cyclops, because it sounds almost like the same guy. So
It really does. I can't tell the difference.
I can't either. Okay, moving on to Bishop finally.
Okay. So let's talk about Bishop for a minute.
Yes, sir.
Now, Bishop was the main character that they used during the animated version of Days of Future Past.
Right.
Which, in the comics, it was Kitty Pryde. In the movies, it was Wolverine.
Now, refresh my memory. Is that where Cable was also coming from his past?
No.
That was in Days of Future Past? No, that was a different one.
Days of Future Past is the one where
we have Storm with the fro, or the
Kitty Pryde comes back from the dystopian future where the Sentinels have pretty much taken over North America.
Now, in the animated series, what is it in the animated series? It wasn't Kitty Pryde.
It wasn't Kitty Pryde. It was Bishop.
Bishop
comes back in time instead of Kitty Pryde. Mostly because I don't know if there was a rights thing going on with Kitty Pryde, or they just decided not to use her at all. But anyway, Forge builds a time machine.
Right.
And Wolverine is the one who's supposed to come back in time, but Forge and Bishop decide that Wolverine is just too old to do it, and so Bishop ends up coming back in time.
Right.
And of course, he loses his memory, and he thinks that Gambit is the traitor.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Ellie that starts the whole thing off, and so I want to say there was one more storyline that featured Bishop.
There was the
original series.
It was the one probably my favorite one, that had Cable come back from his time. His son Tyler was like disappearing, and he had to go back in the past. So, and they had to use Wolverine to be infected by the virus from Apocalypse, so that Cable's future could exist. So millions have to die in the past so that billions can be born, or something like that.
Right.
And I just love that. And the action scenes in that were just awesome. Like when they're fighting in the street there, and the X-plane comes down, because the second episode basically retreads a lot of the footage from the first one, but you have to do this kind of like a Groundhog Day kind of thing, because they go back and try to fix things and back and forth, and then they're fighting Cable, and he's on the top of the building shooting at Bishop, and Wolverine takes his claws and climbs up the building, which is cool. There's so many good action scenes, and there's a whole montage of action in that episode, especially that second part, that works really well. And it's, you see a lot of Cable's, he kidnaps Wolverine and to take him back, and he takes him back to the apartment or whatever he's staying at. And he does uses a lot of his technology, like
right.
Oral spectral trail he can do with his cybernetic eye.
Body slide by one
to HQ. I love that, and it's like, That's why
anyway,
they really like Bishop.
I think he was only in one other animated series storyline after that, and I don't remember.
Good and Evil? No, it wasn't Beyond Good and Evil. It was the one where Xavier. What if Xavier never existed, or gets killed or something in the past?
Did they adapt that for the animated series? I don't remember.
Yeah, because they had the Fitzroy with
because that was the whole thing that started off Apocalypse.
Fitzroy. It was right, but it was, you had Fitzroy with the other guy that kind of had. He was kind of a smart butt.
Fitzroy was in the comics. Fitzroy
was like the
bad guy that came to the past. That Bishop came to the past to. Maybe
it's Fitzroy, but there was another guy with him because he had
Fitzroy is the one that killed his sister.
Fitzroy. If Fitzroy is the guy I'm thinking of, I almost think he has like a green kind of outfit in the X-Men the animated series. And he has that hair that's similar to what you showed on Nightcrawler earlier. Kind of has that wavy kind of hairdo. Yeah. So it's him, and there's a lackey. I don't know which one's called Fitzroy. I don't know. Fitzroy was kind of his.
I honestly, I don't remember.
But that's the episode. And they go back to like 59 when Xavier is in college or something. And it was playing off, what if... like when Legion Quest and like you said, what led to the Age of Apocalypse in the comics, which I have all the Legion Quest stuff out and all that. But anyway, back to Bishop. So that was the other episode that Bishop was in that I can remember.
So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. He was only in one other storyline in the animated series, and I can't remember what it is. I think it had something to do with his sister Shard.
There was something with Shard. You're right. So that
anyway, he never stayed.
Right.
So why is he with the X-Men now? Are we going to hopefully
the last time he went back to his timeline, he said nothing's changed. I remember that, and I don't know where that falls. Maybe he came back. I have to look at the last time we saw him and why he's there. I like
so anyway, that's why I'm rewatching the animated series because it's been it's been at least 10 years since I watched it on DVD.
Right.
The entirety of it.
Cool.
But when I think of Bishop, I think of how we had him in the 90s. He's got that mullet and the goatee, and now he's not sporting that. He's sporting a shorter haircut.
Well, I don't have a problem with that because it's kind of updating him.
It's not a bad look for the character, but when I think of Bishop, I don't, I think of the guy with the mullet.
I understand that. And that's fair.
I don't have a problem. Right. I don't have a problem with them changing, the character up.
To me, that's the same difference as you liking Wolverine in the brown suit and me liking him in the yellow suit.
Yellow and blue, yeah.
Same thing. But what I was going to say was...
I'm just like, why is he there? And the only thing I can figure out, and I kind of hate to say this, but indications to me are really pointing this way because he really didn't have any effect on episode 1 or episode 2. He was just kind of there. And right. I think he's meant to be a representative.
A diversity hire?
Now that Storm, he's meant to be a representative.
Which is
now that Storm has left the team.
That's fine though. I mean,
and I hope that's not the case, but it just kind of feels like it because
what I like is I like his powers. How you see it go through it goes through his veins in his arm.
Oh yeah.
That is so cool.
Speaking about power effects, what about when they're fighting the Sentinels in the junkyard? Mm-hmm. And Gambit charges up Wolverine's claws, and then they throw Wolverine, and he just goes right through the Sentinels.
So because Morph turns into Blob, and he bounces off his belly and goes airborne. That is such.
Morph turns into the Blob,
Oh, that reminds me, when they're falling out of the sky, the X-Men off the X-plane, when the Sentinel tears it up, and then Rogue has that moment right before she's about to catch Beast and whoever else, and there's like that airplane wing that comes flying up. Does that not remind you of Superman Returns, where he goes right through the wing?
Yeah, it kind of does.
I totally at the time thought of that. I was like, oh my gosh, is that like an homage to that? I thought that was pretty cool. Whether that was intentional or not.
How about in that last fight against the Sentinels when
Beast goes in?
What is it? Scott says something to Storm, like turn up the heater or something, and she starts walking through the sand and the lightning striking around her is just turning everything to glass.
Yeah. I love how they set it up. He said, bring the weather, or bring something. I don't know how he said what Scott said.
Bring the storm or
something like. And then before you even see a shot of Storm, immediately the Sentinels say Omega level threat, mutant Omega level threat detected, and then you see her come. The lightning turns the sand to glass, and then she just kind of glides across it. And the lightning's coming down, and then she does like the wind and lightning. Oh my gosh, how that was awesome that she got that moment, and that moment's even more important now because that's really not the last thing we see of her, but we got to see her kind of OP. And then she loses the powers later.
If it follows the comic storyline, she does. I don't remember how it is, but
I looked it up. I watched a video. Forge helps her begrudgingly, kind of.
When Forge and Storm
kind of
that's back during the Fall of the Mutants,
right?
Yeah, because they're in an alternate reality or in the past or something.
Like that. Yeah.
Fight this dude named the Adversary.
Right. Yeah.
I don't remember a whole lot of that. I do remember. I did read that. Because Fall of the Mutants to me is like one of the weakest crossovers because nothing actually crosses over. Everything, all three of the X titles that they had running at the time, X Factor, X-Men,
right,
and New Mutants, they all had that Fall of the Mutants headline on it. But none of the stories were interconnected. They were all 3 issues.
Yeah.
The X-Men had their own little storyline. The New Mutants had their own little storyline.
Hey.
And that's where Doug, is his name Doug?
I don't.
Cypher. That's his code name is Cypher. That's the one where Cypher dies.
Okay.
All of the Mutants in X Factor. That's where Apocalypse finally shows up with Archangel.
Yeah.
During those 3 issues, and then in X-Men, that's the one where they go through the Siege Perilous, and at the end of it, everybody thinks they're dead, but they're not. They're living in Australia.
Right.
The only ones that really know they're alive are the oh Lord, the cyborg dudes. The Reavers.
The Reavers.
They're really the only ones that know that they're alive because where the X-Men decide to live in this abandoned town is a Reaver. It's their headquarters, and the X-Men go in there and run them out.
Right. Well, we probably need. I hate to wrap this up, but I don't know if I get 2 hours on the StreamYard here. I don't know if there's a time limit on it.
Whether it's still on StreamYard or not, it's on YouTube.
Okay. Well, will it still keep going past 2? Because on the free version of StreamYard, I don't know. Will it still keep recording?
I mean, if you need to go, we can wrap it up. And
I probably do as well. I got some other things to do. I mean, we're coming up on 2 hours. About 30 seconds short of that.
I got to go deal with some stuff for the wife, and
I understand. Yeah,
I got to do
a wife and a puppy, and homework to do. I took a break from my homework tonight.
Homework.
Yeah, I know homework. But any closing thoughts about X-Men '97 or anything else that we've talked about?
I will say this about X-Men 97. So far, the first 2 episodes, I'm really, really impressed with it. And I hope it keeps up this level.
They did, 2 or 3 storylines in just 2 episodes. It's like, oh my gosh.
Surprising people in a good way.
Yes, in a good way.
Let's not have any expectations subverted. Let's not have any boxes.
Yeah.
Let's not be trying to disseminate a message other than, peace, love, and rock and roll.
Yeah. Well, X-Men has always been great, serialized, just like the comics it really was with the animated series. And I love that we're just basically picking it up. It feels like 20, 30 years was yesterday, and I saw a thing where
we may see Spider-Man.
They all exist in the same universe. This is canon in Marvel. I mean, they said this is canon, but it's kind of its own thing.
It's not. I think Feige said it's not canon to the MCU.
Right, but it's considered. It's official.
It is official.
Yeah, so that's what matters.
It's animated universe official.
Right. So that's good enough for me.
As long as they keep it going like it is.
I was so impressed.
Episodes.
And I looking forward to. Well, I was able to stay up, wake up at like 3 a.m. and watch it like about 30 minutes after they debuted. I was up that night. I had school the next morning, but I won't be doing that on Wednesdays from now on. But Thursdays, I will definitely be watching it first chance I get in my break between classes.
Well, it should be on. It should be on
Wednesdays at 3 a.m.
Yes, but you can watch it later.
I know, but it'll be. I have to get up.
Wednesday 3 a.m. just keeps carrying over to Wednesday at noon. 1, 2,
No. It's Wednesday 3. Well, I know, but I have school Wednesday mornings.
It drops the same time that Bad Batch drops.
I know.
Watch both Wednesdays.
Which I've got one to catch up. I think on Bad Batch, final season.
It wasn't.
There's some filler episodes in there, definitely.
Yeah, and which is sad because it's not. This is the last season of it. It ain't long enough to have filler episodes.
Right. Now, X-Men 97, we only get 10 episodes. So I feel like I'm getting more for my money with that show. They are packing 10 it.
Episodes is the longest
of a Marvel Plus show.
The longest Disney Plus season is 10 because with Bad Batch we only end up getting 6 or 7, maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly 8.
Yeah, something like that.
Most of the live action Marvel shows are only 6 to 8 episodes.
Right. That's true. That's true.
And I take it back. You know what might have the longest Disney Plus run?
No, X-Men 97 is confirmed to have the longest run.
No,
you're going to say Andor.
The last season of Clone Wars, I want to say, had more than 10 episodes.
Well, I think they're considering. They're not really considering. They're not really considering.
Well, the last season
before Disney
the
Plus
last season is the only thing that's
was a Disney Plus. Okay.
Everything except the last 2 seasons was Cartoon Network.
Right.
Then the next to the last season was Netflix.
Was it?
And then direct to video.
I forgot it was on Netflix.
And then the last season was Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember it was codenamed The Lost Episodes.
Oh yeah. Because I think they were trying to put them out on DVD or something or Blu-ray, and to get you to buy them. Which they're starting to put some of the Disney Plus stuff on.
Yeah, I've seen like the steel books of WandaVision, and
they're okay. I'll stream it. I don't think I'm gonna buy any because I got away from buying physical media.
Yeah, well, most everybody has, unless they're a physical media.
Since I got a 4K television finally, I would like to have a 4K disc, but I don't have an Xbox the one that plays 4K. So I don't really have anything to play it if I got a 4K disc. Like I'd like to.
Say you'll have to get you a 4K Star Wars box set that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in it. That's similar to the Blu-ray.
I don't even know if there's a 4K version out there of Star Wars.
I don't think there is. I don't think they've released a 4K.
I don't think they ever did 4K on it all. And I wouldn't be surprised if after the some of the prequels and stuff come out in theaters, or if it's just episode 1 coming out for the anniversary, maybe they'll go back and remaster them. But everything's going to be, it's all going to, if they even bother to put out physical product, it'll probably be streaming.
I think there will still be some physical product available to get.
Just major things.
Widely available.
Right.
If anybody's going to carry it, it's going to be Amazon.
Right. Yeah.
Because Walmart, they're getting rid of it, and that means they're probably not going to carry it online either. Best Buy has already gotten rid of their physical media sections in their store,
including online. I think they're not even going to sell it online. So I'm like,
I wouldn't know. I haven't looked at Best Buy online for I don't know.
I bought my TV from there, so yeah, I still get information, but they send me sales all the time. But I'm like not interested.
Oh, they send me emails. I just ignore
them. Yeah, I like to look and see what's out there, but I'm not buying anything, so it doesn't really matter right now. But I don't know. So X-Men 97 final word is it's
maybe
fantastic.
Maybe next week we can talk about the next episode.
Oh yeah, I've got no problem with that.
Because I'd like to talk about Magneto too, but I don't think we'd have time.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we're over 2 hours now on this for this live stream.
So we will save Magneto for the next.
Yeah, and for those who are listening, because this will be on podcast. This is also an audio podcast form wherever you get your podcasts. We are. Which I wanted to mention, Google Podcasts sent me a thing that this month I think they're getting rid of Google Podcasts. So it's my favorite podcast app's going away. But I have everything on Pocket Casts, which I've been there for several months. Made that switch in Amazon Music. I can listen to my podcast there. So, of course, on what is it? It's not iTunes anymore. It's Apple Podcasts, I guess. We're still there, Geek Homeworld. So wherever you listen, please, listen there. But for the audio podcast, I wanted you to plug your channel, the address, and everything, so people can know, including Instagram. So I want to thank DigitalCavemann for joining me for this wonderful, fun episode. I was bursting at the seams. I was really bursting at the seams to talk about X-Men, and I was so hyped up today to talk about it. I was like, we got to fight, and I was hoping you would say you had time, so thank you for having time. But, so tell everybody where they can find you, your social media spots.
I am Digital Caveman with 2 N's on Instagram. You can still find me on Twitter or X or whatever the hell they call it these days. I don't know. There's nothing. I've not posted anything on there in probably 3 years.
Same here. I just promote the show there, but that's it.
I just quit using it. I was super excited about Twitter when it first started.
Yeah, it was different.
For those of you that remember the G4 channel,
the
show back of the show.
Yeah.
That was the only reason I had a Twitter account.
So I could Chris Gore on some podcasts now.
So,
he still does.
By the way, speaking of Chris Gore, his little documentary about Attack of the Show is available on YouTube to watch.
Yeah, I saw that. At one point, he hit me up on Twitter. I'm sure I wasn't the only one.
Ages ago, yeah.
Yeah, I started a correspondence with him, but I didn't think I don't think I continued it and all that. I just got.
Well, he contacted me one time. I was like, "Hey, yeah, sure," and then I never heard back from him.
Yeah,
but that was the only reason I started a Twitter account was so I could tweet along with Attack of the Show. And in fact, I was the very first tweet that they showed on air.
That's cool.
Mine was the very first tweet.
I'm sure you don't have that recorded anywhere.
No, I wish I did. I used to have it on a DVR, but I no longer have Comcast, so that DVR is long
gone. Just like all of our digital stuff, if we have one EMP, all this doesn't exist. We'll be going back to comic books. We'll be going to read.
But I'm Digital Caveman with 2 N's on Instagram. And every once in a while, I post something other than a promo for YouTube stuff. But for the most part, it's YouTube promos and occasional.
What's your YouTube address?
YouTube is youtube.com/@D Digital Caveman with 2 N's. Okay. And to check out my memberships, you put all that in and /join, and you can see my membership offers and the different tiers and the pricing structure and what you get for each.
For the memberships. That's cool. That's something I'm aspiring to. So you're leading the way for me.
I'm trying to help you get there, man. Maybe I'll have some experience with it by the time you get there, and I can help you out with it.
Did you ever get on TikTok? Or I know it might be going away.
I do have a TikTok account, but I keep going back and forth with just not using it.
I understand that.
I never really got any traction there. Not that I get a whole lot of traction on Instagram.
I'm like, I just don't need another app. People are gonna have to find me. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't really get the TikTok stuff and the shorts.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get up and dance and make a fool of myself.
Yeah, I am in the process of trying to create a shorts series.
Sweet.
And we'll just see how it goes. Right. Mostly, I just have to do a little bit of research for it.
I understand.
And filming for it, and I just have to find time in my upload schedule to do that.
Through one of my classes, I'm learning better editor skills, so I may be working closer with you in editing stuff. Who knows? One day you might turn on this channel and not just see me live streaming or recording stuff. You may actually see some pre-planned videos, scripted and everything. I don't know that I'll have the time, but as long as it remains fun, that's the important thing. And that's, I'm not chasing numbers. Would I like to get monetized? Sure.
It's
not going to drive my content.
Really.
I'm not trying to follow an algorithm either.
Yeah, I'm going to make the content I want to make, and for the most part, I'm going to make the content the way that I want to make it.
Right.
And, if monetization happens, I used to have
a lot of time in the
great. If I don't, I'm just going to create content until it's not fun to do this anymore.
Exactly. And the other thing for me is it's got to be kind of streamlined at this point, because I've got less patience. Maybe it's getting older, but I've got less patience, and I have less free time, it seems, than I used to have. So I would like to react to stuff in a more timely fashion, but it needs to be kind of shorter and sweeter, or, in a concentrated period of time. And it's got to be the most streamlined, easiest way accessible, because I'm not trying to learn new systems and, I am trying to learn things.
Like you're going to school for right now?
Well, you got me there, but I'm learning these different things, but until I can really implement those, I'm just trying to do it.
And let me tell you guys, I was trying to help Ed with some of his stuff the other day, but the program that I use
is
so completely different from what he's using. I was like, well, see if it's got this feature. Well, I can't find that. And it's, so
it might be there. I just don't know what it is yet. I'm still learning.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think what it is it's just going to take you some time.
It's a learning curve.
Using it to learn it. And
literally there's parts of the interface, like the way that that stuff shows, the way it displays, and from working in especially a mostly audio environment, some of it's the same. I get the general concept, but the interface is just not as user friendly as I'm.
It is not intuitive at all.
And there's like a sliding kind of thing. You know, I'm used to just having a slider where it just goes, when you go left, it goes left. It doesn't, pinch down, and then you have to make it smaller or bigger. And I'm literally finding that my canvas space, even if I go on the bigger TV that I have in the house and plug in, because you can't stream from the program directly to the TV like I can other things. So I'm going to have to try to HDMI out of the laptop into the TV, the big TV. And then, at least I'll have a bigger monitor or a bigger screen so I'm getting older and my eyes aren't what they used to be. My vision's good, but it's still not what it used to be. So things are harder, and I need it considerably bigger, the screen, so I can see what I'm doing. I love the sound effects there. So, I don't know.
Well, you want to go through them all real quick? So,
do what?
And we'll just go through the sound effects real quick.
It's now time for sound effects.
Awesome.
I don't know what this one is. It's just a number. It might be some kind of music track. So
dear.
That's supposed to be a kiss. That's what it's labeled as.
Oh dear.
To be gunshots.
Oh, that sounded like somebody typing an old typewriter.
Well, listen. You'll hear them cock the gun.
Oh dear.
Before it starts going on.
Remember, gun safety is important, everyone. Yes. Is that like?
It's labeled slash, but that's not what it sounds like.
It sounds like Indiana Jones with his whip.
Yes.
What?
And I want to say this is probably one of my favorite ones to use.
Hey, we picked up a viewer right now towards the end here.
Oh, do we? Wow. Awesome.
Welcome, viewer.
Welcome to the end of the show.
I love it. You guys are so great.
It sounds like Rogue.
You guys are so great.
That's us.
This is almost like, hey, DigitalCavemann, this is almost like an old Digital Man Cave episode, isn't it?
Yeah, like that.
It's turned into that.
Where we had
or the diabetes episode.
No, the one where we had the soundboard on our phone. It was Duke Nukem versus
Samuel L. Jackson. Oh my gosh!
One of my favorite episodes.
That was one of my favorites.
So much fun on that one.
And I used to always have the clever titles for the podcast names. So.
Oh yes, I remember when we used to try.
That was like one of the things. Like you're trying to always outdo ourselves.
The first 6 episodes were all like we tried to theme them off of like a Star Wars type.
True.
Title.
Well, the first one, it was 2008, and we did The Dark Knight was out, and so I think I called it. Was it the pot? No, 2014 is when this one started, 10 years ago. But one of them was like, this one was, what was it? I know I had the soundbite on there when I was looking for people to join the podcast where the Joker says, Heath Ledger's Joker says, we're taking tryouts. Remember that? Yeah. But, gosh, this is really taking me back. And it's ironic. I just realized something. This is episode 170 of the Geek Homeworld podcast. We went exactly 150 episodes of Digital Man Cave. So I've now gone 20 episodes past that, which I was supposed to. I know I was supposed to have done so many, but the last couple of years have been kind of weird and tumultuous.
Well, moving and
moving to a new town and
all that stuff,
and the pandemic and this and that. And God knows. And all the fun stuff. So, yeah, we're just looking at keep doing what we're doing here, and all that. You're doing your thing on your channel, and we'll definitely start doing more live streams like this. I'm enjoying them. It's fun. It's much easier. It's much more fun when it's not scripted. Like tonight, I think we did a really good job for the majority of the episode up till this last 10 or 20
you
minutes.
mean except for all those comic book segues?
But they were related to X-Men. It tied into what we're talking about
It
here.
was related to what we were talking about. So
we were in the neighborhood.
We all topic.
So
we were in the same state at least.
in the same state. Yeah, I guess I need to bring this to a close. I've got a million things to do and tons of homework. I've got so much stuff to do. I don't even know how to think straight, but I got a lot done today. So today was a good day. I feel accomplished. And that's important. You don't always win the race, but if you're getting stuff accomplished, then that's sometimes
that's like what I say when I was using 2 monitors.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I would say I don't know if it actually makes me any more efficient at doing stuff, but it made me feel like I was.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I have an old monitor that's an old actual Asus ASUS. It might be 19 by 20. It doesn't look like it, but it doesn't quite do the whole widescreen thing. And I have another one that's still they're still good monitors. You can't destroy these things. They still run. And I've got another monitor here for when I have a guest, when I get the studio finally cleaned up one day and ready, like hopefully before you come to visit. Yes. Spoiler alert. But then I've got my old TV there that's literally, I've had that thing since about 2008, and it's not a 4K because 4K didn't exist.
Right.
It's a 1080p.
4K
But that is a damn good TV. It's an RCA, and that thing will not die. It just will not die.
It's like, man, I still have one tube TV left, and it's an Apex.
Oh my gosh, Apex.
And my God, I swear to God,
sell those.
It's a 32-inch. No. Is it bigger than? I don't know. I don't remember what size it is. I want to say it's
was big back in the day.
And that thing weighs 500 pounds if it weighs an ounce.
You and I both remember CRT TVs that were like this deep.
Oh Lord!
So incredibly heavy.
It can't be no worse than the time that Chaos and I were working on remodeling the TV wall and electronics at Walmart, and we put the last damn tube TV on there, and the whole sumbitch collapsed.
Well, I think y'all tried to tell somebody about that, but y'all were told to do that, weren't you? Or I don't remember.
We were told to do it. It was our job. We were overnight resetting all the mods during a remodel.
And we won't mention where this was.
And we figured out why the TV wall fell. It's because it wasn't secured properly when they moved the warehouse rack. They didn't secure it. All they did was bolt it into the damn sheetrock. And the weight of those TVs.
I do not miss
like a 12-foot section.
I do not missing having the bullpen. You remember the bullpen, and then we had the racks out in the aisles, and then you had to lift those. Back in the day, I could lift a 25-inch TV, CRT TV myself. I could. Excuse me, my volume went up there.
Oh, remember,
I could do as much as a 32-inch.
Yeah,
but you kind of had to.
It depended on what brand it was too. Like those Sanyos.
Yeah.
Those Sanyo TVs, man, those things, 32 inches of TV, that was still light.
Right.
You compare that to like a Philips Magnavox.
Now, dude, all the flat panels, you can't even lift a flat panel if you tried. It's like my TV in the air. I tried to move that thing. I think I need help.
The thing about the flat panels now is it's not that they're heavy, it's that you just can't get your arms around them.
Well, I did that and touched the screen because there's nowhere to touch. I was like, where do I put my freaking hands?
How do I hang this thing up? I can't lift it.
I know, it's like crazy. That's why people put them on the wall and leave them there. But
just so I don't touch it, a special crane.
I know. So oh dear.
Those are the days. But yeah, I still have that one CRT TV hanging out. I still have one CRT computer to monitor.
Damn.
And I still have the computer that goes with it. I don't know if it works anymore.
I have a desktop here somewhere that I need to do something with. I was gonna do when I was thought I was gonna do live streaming and bring a game streaming in, but now my like the laptop I have now can easily do that. But my last paperweight of a laptop that was this super thick.
Yeah.
It lasted about 5 years and it still works. I turned it on not too long ago, but oh my gosh, it is so incredibly slow.
10 years for it to start up.
Basically, and it doesn't. I fixed the fan on it just trying to get me to the finish line, and thank God I went back to school because I was able to get a newer laptop that was far more efficient. But if you wait 5 or 6 years in computers, like this is our tech talk that I haven't done on the podcast, right? If you wait like 5 or 6 years, you're so obsolete at this point. And technology is moving so incredibly fast that it's, stuff can get pretty slowed down if they don't throttle it down like some of the phones like Apple does. You think they're gonna split Apple up? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think the government's gonna do it.
No, Apple owns too much of the government.
And I think it's a compatibility issue. I think they'll get a little bit more open sourced, or they'll try to push that. I think that's really what they're going after,
I think that's more what needs to happen is there needs to be more cross-platform.
Right.
And I really think that's what Microsoft is shooting for, especially in the video game arena.
Well, that they've announced that they're getting out of the console business. There might be one more Xbox down the line, and then which
is a shame because I've liked their hardware. I've always thought that their hardware was a little better. Well, maybe not the hardware. I felt like when
they definitely have an ecosystem built.
When
in.
Xbox Live was a thing, to me that was the easiest platform to play online games.
More than PlayStation. And
because I know we tried several times with PlayStation 3 and it was a horrible experience every single time.
It was totally, and it was kind of you get what you pay for too. Now of course you have to pay for that in the PlayStation Store.
Because PlayStation at the time.
You're talking about the interfaces versus the hardware. I always thought even though the Blu-ray won out over the HD DVD, you remember the Xbox had the HD DVD? I almost got one, but then I ended up getting a PlayStation. I was like, oh, well, that's just makes more sense. The Blu-ray and everything was going Blu-ray anyway. Yep. And so, I have like a PlayStation 3 that I can't really do anything with now. It won't upgrade. It's not even on their site.
It won't update.
It won't update, and it's.
I can't even remember the last time I turned mine on, but I don't even think
the last time I turned it on either.
And I don't think it's connected to the internet. I was just using it as.
It was my Blu-ray player. It was the most affordable Blu-ray player out there. And
it was the most versatile.
Very much Blu-ray. So. And I always felt like it looked better.
You remember when 3D was a thing?
Yes, I do.
And if you had a 3D TV, you couldn't hardly get a 3D Blu-ray player.
I waited so long to get a TV. I wanted desperately to get in on that 3D action and have the disc.
Aren't you so glad you missed out on it now?
No, well, I guess now I am, but I still wanted that option. I wanted to experience that, and I couldn't experience it in my home.
Honestly, because
I couldn't afford a TV.
Is just not there yet. It's just not there yet.
It's still not, but I wanted to have that in-home experience like some people had.
When they get it to the point of a holodeck, I'm all in.
Yeah, well. We'll be so old
stuff, man.
They'll just upload us to the holodeck. We'll live in the holodeck. I'll be fine with that. I'll be on Ryza.
We'll be the constituted matter that they use in a holodeck.
You and me will be hanging out in Ryza. Or with Will.
Jamaharon. We're going to take one of those around. Jamaharon.
And some Dabo girls. No. We're both married. We have our Dabo girls, right? We love our ladies.
Yes.
We're so lucky. Oh, look, I just got it's after 12 this week on Digital Cavemann Presents, March 25th, 2024 through March 29th, 2024.
Now, see, if you were in the middle tier of my membership, you would have gotten that Friday night.
You don't say.
Yes.
Cool. So, okay, let's make quick predictions. What's going to happen in the next episodes through? Here's our little extra content because I already kind of consider our episodes ended. But
it's hard to say where it's going to go from here. Sentinels, they're pretty much played out at this point.
Yeah, they've killed Master Mold again. Master Molds.
This is like the 14th time.
Not that many, but yeah, definitely.
Okay, maybe not in the animated show, but they certainly killed him a lot of times. And
I like having the Sentinels around, but yeah, they're gonna evolve them or.
Sentinels always usually make for a good episode.
I did have a problem in Night of the Sentinels, the first 2 episodes. Like compare in some of the shots, they were so incredibly large compared to, their scope and size or whatever you call it.
I think they do a much better job scale-wise now with the animation than they used to, because scale-wise, in the 80s and the 90s, hand-drawn animation scale-wise was just all over the place.
It was just freaking hard work.
You go back and you look at something like the Transformers cartoon.
Robots in Disguise.
From the 80s. The G1 cartoon. And even up through the movie in season 3 and what, the beginning of season 4, what would have been season 4 of it. There were just scale issues all over the place. The robots were never the same size.
Well, and you have that with some of your models there in your studio there. Like your Star Wars ones, the different ones that were different. What do you call it? Ratios? What is it called? Sizes?
Scale.
Scale. Yeah, because you have like some of your clone trooper stuff.
Oh yeah, I used to be heavy into the 3 3/4 Star Wars, and then
the ones that are like super big that aren't big, but they're just like too big. Like I have one of my X-wing fighters, like this one right here. This
Yeah, see, that's the 3 3/4.
Yeah, this is a little. I mean, it's nice when you have the figures and stuff like that, but I kind of just wish this were a lot smaller.
Well, they do have that Micro Galaxy line.
Oh, do I have this upside down? Oh,
that has much.
Oh my
smaller.
Gosh, that's been upside down the whole time.
Like this one.
Right, yeah.
It's much smaller.
I love the sound. My favorite sound is probably the TIE Fighter sound, that ion engine. I used to be able to kind of do it, and I'm sure I can't do it now, but if I'm not trying to do it, I can do it. And of all the tech in Star Wars, the ion engine that this is based on is the only thing that's almost theoretically possible that we can do. Yeah. Star Wars is very much fantasy versus the tech of Star Trek. People came up in the industry, the rockets and stuff like that. They all came up watching Star Trek and tried to make, the pad, PADD.
Yeah. We have it now.
It's called the iPad. It's called whatever, it's called tablets. It's everything else, So much technology came through Star Trek because that's more doable.
Star Trek inspired a lot of
inspired a lot. Yes.
Cell phone and
William Shatner's got a documentary or whatever coming out.
I just saw where that's it's out, I think.
Well, you'll have to let me know. I have to look it up and see if it's playing here so I can check it out or when it's going to be. I feel like it's going to go straight to video almost.
It probably is, like the Captains.
Yeah.
But, which was I thought it was really good, except for like where he was interviewing oh Lord, what's his name that played Cisco?
Yes, I'm hanging on to my little Amazon gift card
Avery
there.
Brooks. The interview with Avery Brooks was a little weird.
Yeah. Do you hear me? I'm collecting my Amazon gift cards. I'm going to try to institute a second camera setup in here.
Yeah, so we can see 2 angles of.
Yeah, but then I'm going to have to really kind of, some of these boxes of comics and electronics, I'm going to have to.
You just have to set your camera on top of them. That way you can't see.
I'm going to try to make this more of a studio, and hopefully, we hit the pandemic and, couldn't go near people for almost years, it seemed like. And so now we're kind of getting into we've already into a new normal. But, I'm hoping to maybe have some people over, who knows? We'll see what happens.
Toward the end of June.
That's right. And then, there goes the surprise there. You may be my first you will probably be my first in studio person if I can get everything together. I've been trying forever, and I just never seem to have the time. And actually, I've run out of space. I may have to get rid of some junk. I have my box of cables over here on the floor, because you always have to have those cables.
Yeah, your box of random cables. Yeah, I have
cables. I don't know how many HDMIs I have in there. I see some old speakers from one of my desktop computers.
You never know when you're going to need that micro USB cord. You never know when you're going to need that USB to USB cord.
I could. Oh, I'm sorry.
What was the one that was shaped like a short, fat T? It was one of the USBs. I can't remember what it is, but I
can't remember.
It's like
there was a USB-A.
2 generations of cords back.
There was a USB-A. This
shape,
thick one. It's kind of like a brick-like, I think, if I remember correctly. The USB-A is.
You never know when you're going to run across something where you need one of those old cords that they don't make anymore. True.
And I was thinking, gosh, what is it? The other thing I was telling you earlier before we recorded, my Rodecaster Pro I've had forever, and somehow I've lost the little micro SD card. It's not as big as your fingernail. They're so small. And I always have it in the machine, or I know where it's at. And I'm so proud of myself. I've always been spot on. And somewhere along the line, recently, I've lost it.
Out.
Yeah, so I can't record this.
The Monster has it.
I know. Must be. Well, the puppy. I hope he didn't.
No. The actual carpet monster. The carpet. It fell in the carpet and it disappeared.
God, don't say that.
It fell through a void into another dimension.
Yeah. Well, I'll need my optic blast to go into another dimension to find him, I guess. But
I'm not going there.
Me either.
It's a dimension of concussive force.
And as soon as I say that, I'm gonna look one day, just look down, and it's gonna be there. You know what I mean?
You're gonna roll your chair back, and you hear snap.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens.
There it is. Both pieces of it now.
It was there. Now it's in pieces. I even have a little adapter that SD to micro SD.
What do you see for the next episode?
Do what?
What do you see for the next episode of X97?
Oh, for the
that's
next
what we were supposed to be talking about.
Sorry. Well, I definitely see Madeline Pryor. I think they have to, since she's at the door, they're going to start with that. I think it's going to go right into that.
Yeah.
We're going to see a continuation of Storm's situation. I feel like that's going to drag on for a couple episodes, but the breakneck pace they could.
I'm thinking she won't be back to the last episode of the season.
Oh, like in the clinch, like in the. Oh, the last. Oh, where is it? I don't have the list.
I'm thinking at some point, maybe episode 5, about halfway through the show.
I guess since we're going through it, I might as well bring that up if I can. I had a listing of what the episode names were.
But I'm guessing maybe episode 5 or 6, we're gonna have a solo Storm episode. Where she's wrestling with her identity and stuff like that, and maybe some clue as to her getting her powers back.
I know I had it saved somewhere. I felt like I sent it to you at some point,
and then she'll come back at the end in the clutch.
Yeah. Did you hear me on that? I think I had a list of the episode names. I guess I could look it up real quick.
No. Don't worry about it tonight. Save
because
it for next episode.
That would kind of that could be a good teaser for a next episode. X-Men 97. What do you call it? What would you call that? Titles?
Episode titles.
Episode titles. Thank you. Yep. episode titles. Go. List on Disney. Oh, here's the list. Okay. March 20. Okay, that's that. Oh, episode 3 is called Fire Made Flesh. Sounds phoenixy.
No, I think it's gonna have to do with demon, goblin queen.
Oh, this is what it says. When a visitor arrives at the mansion with a dangerous secret that threatens Cyclops and Jean's relationship, the team is propelled into a tragic confrontation with an immortal mad scientist. But then we have, then we got a 2-parter for April 3rd and the following one coming up on my birthday. Motendo / Life Death Part 1. Motendo, and then it says / Life Death is one word. The 4th installment, it's first of 2 parts. They have a description here. I'm not going to read the description, but I can tell you what it's about. And so there's one of that. That's the 7th and 10th, episode 4 and 5. Excuse me, that's the 3rd and the 10th. Remember It is the 2nd part. Then we have Life Death Part 2, episode 6. They split it. They put an episode between a 2-parter. So April 17th.
I wouldn't necessarily say a filler episode, but maybe a bridge episode.
It's called Remember It. It's Genosha's.
Remember It. That sounds like a flashback.
Genosha's getting into the UN, so it's around that, centered around that.
Well, that's what they said at the end of episode 2.
Right. So then we have Life Death Part 2 is episode 6 on April 17th. April 24th we have Bright Eyes, and it just says it's a Cyclops related episode. I'm not going to read I'm trying to be spoiler free on this.
Right.
Episode 8 Part 1, another 2-parter. Tolerance is Extinction. Actually, this is what ends the series. I think it's 8 Tolerance is Extinction. Part 1, that's episode 8, May 1st. Tolerance is Extinction, Part 2, May 8th. And the 10th and final episode is Tolerance is Extinction, Part 3, air date May 15th. And it's about mutant-human relations. So I feel like Storm might be coming back, and like you said, maybe that's when she comes back. It doesn't look like, just looking at those titles, just right off the bat, it doesn't look like anything specific Storm.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
And I don't think they'll go all the way into next season and not give Storm her powers back. I feel like she'll get them back, or maybe she'll get them in a portion of them back or something.
Yeah.
But I hope we get her back to full power sooner than later, of course. But it's so tragic. I mean, they did such a good job, and X-Men is really not a kids, especially this version is not really for kids.
This version is not a kid show.
Yeah.
It's nostalgia. It's for those of us who wanted exactly what it is, which is a continuation,
right?
A more adult continuation of what we watched 30 years ago. And then that's not to say a kid can't watch it. It's not. There's
some parts that are a little scary, but I think kids can handle it these days.
It's not any more violent than the original show.
Right.
Only the biggest difference I can see in it is maybe a little bit of more adult language, but that's, to me, maybe a total of 3 words in 2 episodes.
Right.
If I remember correctly, it wasn't much. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't much, and it wasn't, anything. They weren't dropping F-bombs or anything.
Yeah, of course not. Here's something that here's a point that kind of ties back, and I don't want to go back into the conversation necessarily, but speaking about wokeness, and when this is X-Men essentially sees, this is 1997, people weren't thinking in a woke kind of fashion back then. So
far out from it,
and it was just a different time. And for better or worse, it was just a different time. And so for them to get really progressive with stuff and make stuff woke goes against what they're doing here. They might as well start, if they started a new X-Men series, fine, but if you're continuing, and so far so good, but if they're continuing like they are with this from the animated series to X-Men 97, then this season and next season, and if there's a third season, hopefully there will be, you can't really, unless you do a time jump, it's not really appropriate to have that. It just doesn't go with the time if you're going with the time of when these shows were made or when they're supposed to be taking place.
Right.
If you're keeping your story straight. And,
Well, I'm going to draw one final tidbit, and then,
okay.
we need to
wrap it up.
A lot of people want to say that Stan Lee created the X-Men to battle racism. And I don't know, that may have been something in the back of his mind when he created the X-Men. But the biggest reason he created the X-Men was he was tired of coming up with individual origin stories for superheroes.
Yeah. How many spiders can you get bit by?
They're born that way. That's the explanation. They're born that way.
Yeah.
They're born
mutant
and no other explanation needed.
Yeah.
No, that's not to say they don't still have.
It's not lazy writing. It actually makes sense because you can only come up with so many unique origins.
Exactly. There's only so many guys who can go into space and get bombarded by cosmic rays.
Right. Fantastic Four.
Bit by a radioactive spider. And given the super soldier serum,
right,
and build a micro circuit suit, and create a shrinking.
I am Iron Man.
So yeah, but I mean, it was a quick and easy way to get a book out.
Yeah.
Without having to spend a lot of time explaining the origin of, how.
You just gave me a what if. Imagine everybody that was in the MCU is cast as they are, right? But imagine we lived in a world where Ant-Man created Ultron, like in the comics, in the MCU. Imagine the MCU was like that. And Paul Rudd's Ant-Man, it doesn't work, does it? He would be the smartest man alive. No, it wouldn't work.
And well, it was never, the character that Paul Rudd plays, of course, is Scott Lang.
Right.
And Scott Lang was not a scientist like Henry Pym. He was an electrical engineer.
Right.
And he just got caught up in some bad stuff, and he went to jail. And, he learned his lesson going to jail, and, he wanted to walk the straight and narrow when he got out of prison. And, somewhere along the way he met Hank Pym, and
right.
Some reason or another, Hank decided to let him have the suit and the Pym particles and to be Ant-Man, because at the time, of course, Hank was not Ant-Man. He was into his fourth superhero persona. I want to say it was his fourth.
Yellowjack or some or what?
Yellowjack. He went Ant-Man, and then he went Giant Man, and then he went Goliath. Which Goliath and Giant Man basically
same thing.
It's the same thing, just different costumes. And then he kind of lost it for a bit and became Yellow Jacket, and then he ends up losing it again later after that.
I mean, I'm happy with how Ant-Man went until, of course, Quantum Mania. And
I didn't hate Quantum Mania.
Yeah,
it wasn't the best. I just don't think the track record they had with Ant-Man and Paul Rudd, it was much more of a comedic take
Right. All of a sudden he's serious and everything, and it just didn't.
The third one here, we're introducing
King
who's supposed to have been the main villain of the next phase.
He gets beat by Ant-Man.
I guess.
Come on.
But, they're introducing the big baddie in an Ant-Man movie who, is not the serious guy.
Right.
And
he's one of the lesser heroes. He's not what I would call it, even though Iron Man technically wasn't.
Honestly,
B level.
Up until the MCU started,
right,
most of the Avengers were, they weren't what you would consider top tier.
They were like tier 2 or level B or something. Yeah, especially Iron Man.
Your top tier characters were more Spider-Man and X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not how it always was. In the comics, when Marvel Comics first started off, and all those guys were top tier guys because they were brand new. And you get to the Avengers, it's like, let's make a team up of the best. And at the time, they were the best of the best. You had, Iron Man, Ant-Man, and Hulk.
And the fact that Robert Downey Jr. just nailed that character, he was Tony Stark. Is Tony Stark.
I wouldn't say he nailed it. I would say he redefined what Iron Man is for the modern, not just moviegoer, but the modern comic book reader, because a lot of what they did over in the MCU shaped the stories that they were telling in the comics, and
if
Tony
it sells,
Stark,
you're going to go with it. You're going to follow that.
Never been a guy to shy away from the spotlight.
Yeah, and just RDJ just has that charisma, and I mean, he became
because for years, for many years, they went with nobody knew Tony Stark was Iron Man. Iron Man was Tony's bodyguard. That's why he was always close by. Except there were a few that knew, like early on in the 70s, maybe might have been the mid 70s.
But it's a good thing. It takes away the whole secret identity thing, that whole trope.
And Thor, they knew each other's secret identity. They were the only two Avengers that did, except for at one point everybody knew that Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym were their alternate identities, and then Steve Rogers sort of kind of kept his identity secret, but it wasn't a huge secret. Most of the Avengers knew that Steve Rogers was Captain America. The second team of Avengers that took over in, I want to say issue 14, issue 17, something like that. They all knew Steve Rogers was Captain America, and that was Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Hawkeye. Was there somebody else? I think that was it, because they called
Vision? Was Vision in there?
No, the Vision was later. He wasn't around about issue 53, 56, something like that.
And in the MCU, Vision became probably one of my favorite characters. Age of Ultron.
He's a much different character.
They depowered him unfairly in Infinity War because he should have been much more powerful. They had to and they've had to do that they've had that problem in the MCU with Thor, having to kind of depower him as well, Can't be as
well. You gotta remember, in the comic books, Thor's biggest weakness was he couldn't. Anytime that he threw Mjolnir, he had to have it back. He had to have, anytime Mjolnir left his hand, he had.
I think I'm losing you here. Are you there?
Because if he did, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just froze up for a second. So say what you were saying. Whenever Thor let go of Mjolnir,
he had to have it back in his hand within a minute. Otherwise, he would turn into Donald Blake.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Now, in the mid 80s, they it might have been a little before the mid 80s. They kind of got rid of that, and they kind of got rid of the Donald Blake secret identity. It's a whole convoluted thing there.
It's just something you don't need, it's easier to have it one character than
that was his big weakness is, Mjolnir always returned to his hand, but if for some reason it didn't within a minute, he reverted to his mortal form.
So what if it was coming back to him and he turns back, the minute's passed, would it smack him in the head and kill him?
No, it wouldn't, because the hammer has an enchantment on it too, that when he is in his mortal form, it's a walking stick. It turns into a walking stick.
Well, couldn't he put his good eye out?
He might could put his good eye out.
Okay. Unfortunately.
But you get a splinter.
Yeah, well, it happens. In the wrong place.
But as time went on, the more popular characters became the more A-list guys, like Spider-Man and the X-Men. And the Avengers just they didn't get the best writers, they didn't get the best artists, and it just...
I want to say on this momentous 170th episode here, you've done the impossible. You've taken my place and actually gone longer and extended us almost an hour here on the last one, which I'm not complaining, but I do kind of have to wrap it up.
Yes.
I got to feed all the chickens and all the cows in the back 40 and all that stuff and whatever else. I'm needed at Avengers Tower later, and I don't know.
Do your homework.
Norman Osborn called me. I don't know what he wants.
Oh, don't answer that call.
I'm not taking it. I'm not taking
that dude's
call.
Crazy.
So, oh dear. Well, thank you for joining me on this episode. Anybody who's still listening or made it this far.
Nobody's listening, but it's okay.
Well, we got two people in there.
Well, that's true. Somebody might be listening to the podcast form.
They're still trying to watch the first hour or so.
A century from now, historians are going to find the audio version of this, and they're going to be like, what in the hell are these fools talking about?
Hey, we did a good hour, a little over an hour or so, where we were totally on topic. Then it turned into a free-for-all, but it all makes sense. It's a lot of good knowledge for anybody that cares to listen, even if you listen in increments. You're going to learn something, because we know a lot about comics and other stuff.
You want to know about comic books and stuff.
None of this stuff that'll help us in the real world, but
No, that'll help the real world.
That's why
I can't show you a YouTube video on how to I don't know, repair a car or something. When I have to do that stuff, I have to watch a YouTube video on how to do it.
You're not the only one. I'm like, well, that reminds me. I'm like, all of a sudden we've gotten rain recently, and the grass has decided, it's time to grow. And I'm like, I just cut that like a week ago or so.
Yeah, my guys came back. They started back last week. And then
I'm going to have to go out there this week and cut grass.
The dogs barked at it the entire time they were mowing the grass. Then when they went in the backyard after the guys were gone, they wanted to bark at everything in the backyard because
my puppy does the same.
In my yard.
Somebody came to the door tonight, and I was like, are you going to answer? And I was like, no, I'm not going to answer. There's somebody trying to sell something, soliciting. They're not supposed to.
They want you to come to the Jehovah's Witness.
But my dog's no good. He's running to the window by the door, and he's barking at the door, and then he's running back and looking at me. So it's obvious I'm there. The person outside can't see me. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'd normally open the door, but I'm like, no, not today.
You need one of them Ring doorbells, man. What do you want?
What do you want? I'm watching you. But,
get off my porch.
Mutants. I want to get one of those. I want to get one of those sound bites that says Omega when I walk in or when my phone rings.
Omega level mutant.
Omega level mutant detected. I can't do the Sentinel voice, but
it'll say Omega level geek.
But anywho, well, thank you for joining me, everybody. Check out Digital Cavemann's channel and
subscribe to him. Subscribe to me.
Geek Homeworld, YouTube.
to everyone you watch on YouTube.
I know there's two people in here, and we had maybe 3 people in the live stream. So 2 people have hit the thumbs up button. So whoever this other person lurking or whoever you are, just hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, enable notifications.
Share, watch a bunch of stuff.
We'll talk more about X-Men 97 coming up and other things. Hey, and we actually finally
next week we'll talk about it on my channel.
Yep. Hey, we talked about Apple and some tech. I know you're not an Apple guy, but I'm not an Apple guy either. But yeah, I know about it.
But so you've always wanted to be.
No, I had opportunities, and I'm like, yeah, it's an easier interface, but I've just always liked Android.
Well, you're welcome for talking you off the ledge, my friend.
Yes. It's all good.
I want to buy this Apple computer. Don't you buy that Apple computer. You're paying too much for it, for what you get. Don't do it.
It's just like my lusting after the Surface products for years. And like, one day they're going to get cheap enough, but they're not. They just keep getting more expensive.
They won't. Man, I'll tell you, man, you get more use out of a convertible laptop than you will out of the Surface.
Oh, yeah. I already have. So. But it's good. It's all good.
I have a convertible. I like it. If I need to flip it over and use it tablet style.
Mine. I don't use it as much as I
can use it, but I don't
use it as much as I thought I would.
Yeah, I don't either as much as I thought I was going to.
But
I originally thought, well, I'm going to try to get into this digital art and do some drawing, and it just never. It never happened.
Once I start getting clients and stuff, I might utilize it more. So, I'm kind of future proof, and I hope in a sense,
But I still like it. It's still, it does help me out. I can flip it around like if I'm on the road editing videos or something. And
that's it's whatever works for your workflow. It's about your DAW. It's whatever suits you best. It's not chasing brands or specs. It's whatever actually works for you. I think mine has a fingerprint scanner, or at least there's an indentation for one, but I don't think it actually does that unless I haven't enabled it.
It may be one of those models where that's one of those.
Could be an option.
You can get it in there, but it doesn't necessarily. That particular model.
And the other thing is, I don't know what the other thing is that I was going to say. I don't know. This has a built-in SD card reader, and I checked in there hoping my card was in the laptop. It's not. It's like, dang it. I don't know where that thing is. That thing costs a lot of money. I've used that thing for years. It was a Rodecaster brand, a Rode brand. So, it came with it. I'm like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can replace it.
I know. I could just get a off the market one.
Cost.
I'm going to have to do that sooner than later because right now I don't have the capacity to record on the Rodecaster Pro, and that upsets me because that's my backup. Oh, Lord, I'm hearing the crows. It must be time to go. All righty. Well, thank you.
All right, for the 45th time.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
A 3-hour live stream episode. Wow.
Good morning, actually, but
I'm really too tired to upload this, but I got homework.
It was fun.
Man, I got homework to do. I got so much to do.
Do your homework. Upload it Monday.
I don't know. It'll get there when it gets there.
I know. I hate you, Digital Cavemann. You're the voice of reason. Just get off my channel.
Get off my channel now. I love your shirt. I have mine's old and faded. Expressions of Vader.
Getting there, man. It's just starting to get crackly.
Yeah, mine faded and crackled a long time ago. All right. Well, thank you for taking hours out of your life for the podcast.
Yes. I could have been recording.
And good luck. How many subs you're up to now?
What's your subs? I am 3 subs away from 700.
Woohoo! You're gonna get there. You're only 650 ahead of me.
It's a race right now to see if I'm going to hit 700 subs first or 700 episodes.
That's true.
Because next week I'm dropping 695 through 699.
Dang.
So if I can get 3 subs this week, or even by not this Monday, but next Monday, if I hit that third sub on the same day, that 700th sub on the same day I'm dropping episode 700, that would be awesome.
While we're talking tech a little bit, I should get the Opus clip I've been looking at, even the free version, and I could take like this 3-hour stream and split it up and even make smaller content that could drive shorts, and more stuff to the channel here. There's opportunities, but let AI do it, because I'm not going to sit here and chop up a 3-hour episode. I was going to go back on my last live stream and put in chapters, which I may still do that if I get time, but I don't have time for stuff like that. I just need to get the content done.
I'm dropping chapters in all my stuff this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing to do. It's good to put that as part of the workflow, because I appreciate that. I've been
doing it all along, but
I was doing it for a while on my episodes when I was really kind of in my groove, and then things just got disrupted. And
it's easy now. I know how to put it in there now, and
that's part of your workflow. Yeah, if you make it part of your workflow, it can happen.
So it's not that bad. And now all I have to do, when I go, I got the TubeBuddy and use the reuse information tab, and so all I have to do is change a few things, change the numbers for the times.
Well, like with my podcast, Libsyn is like that, because they've been my host for the audio podcast for 10 years that I've been doing this, and even longer, probably when I was in the old podcast.
You were using Lisbon. We were still doing
because we were on Digital Man Cave was on. It was a funny name.
It was on Lisbon. Not all of. I don't think all of it was on Lisbon.
Not all of it was on Libsyn. We switched because what was it called?
At least the second half of it was.
Right. What was it called? My podcast something like it had
I don't remember
a weak kind of sounding name, but we had.
I couldn't tell you because
we had thousands of listeners on there.
That was all your realm.
That's I've always been the tech guy behind everything, which is so funny that like when you finally got on the YouTube and you really started grinding over a year ago, and I was really taken aback. I was like,
take that back to 4 years ago.
Was it longer than that?
I'm in season 4 now, dude. It's been 4 years.
What did I say over here? Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's 2024. You're right. So it was during the pandemic you really were able to.
I started in the January of 21.
Okay.
Is when I started.
Wow. And I was surprised, and then you were on somebody's live stream. I was like, you haven't been on my podcast for a while. I was pissed, but I was like, I introduced you to YouTube, and then you didn't really do anything with it. I mean, you had a channel, and then I was actually doing more because I was doing more with Savannah on Film, and I really built that up, and then that kind of is on hiatus until I can figure out, now that I'm somewhere else, where I'm going to.
Now that you're not in Savannah and you're not in film.
Not directly in film anymore, yeah. Even though I've recently starred in a couple films, some student project films, as an actor. They're getting me as an actor, so maybe I've got...
Those don't count.
I know. They're kind of like, the film community where I came from. It doesn't really count. It's nice to say, but it's not really anything. We're just getting a grade. We're not trying to make great art. So Moonfruit, moonfruit.com.
That was the website.
That was the website. That was the hosting website.
It didn't have any, you couldn't access the podcast directly on there. I think we had links
or something, but access. And they didn't have, everything wasn't as good as Libsyn. Libsyn's been solid as a rock since I've had them. You had to pay for it, but Moonfruit was free. Moonfruit was free back in the time.
Moonfruit was free, yes. You could get better stuff paying for it, but it was pretty basic stuff.
Right. And we've always been on iTunes, and even with this podcast, so I haven't missed a beat. That's one reason I hadn't switched over Geek Homeworld, because I don't go on iTunes. I'm not a Mac guy. I'm becoming a Mac guy because of my job and or impending stuff in school. But yeah, not having being on Apple, I haven't really done anything. I don't remember the last time. I don't even think I have an iPod or iPad or anything that, I'm not in that ecosystem.
I have 0 Apple related products.
Yeah. So
I don't even have Apple TV.
And
I've heard there were really good shows on there.
I've got nothing against Apple. It's just I'm just a Droid kind of guy and a Windows guy, but I'm learning to diversify more. So we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, because they're gonna train you in school.
Yeah, well, they already are. And I actually like working on the Big Mac.
Yeah,
the Big Mac. Yeah, I said I like working on the Big Mac. I like eating a Big Mac too, with cheese. Like eating that. But yeah, the screen's much bigger. Like even this laptop, this is like more a field kind of thing.
Here's the thing about screen size: you can get a bigger screen. It doesn't matter if you're using Apple, if you're using Windows, if you're using Android.
Well, I may try to, when it's in the studio here as an aside, the old TV I got, maybe I can hook it up, even if I can't, because it's an older TV. I don't know. I think I can stream to it, but when you're in the program, you can't stream the programs usually to it. So I might be able to
go find HDMI. You the longest HDMI cords you can find.
I'm sure in one of these boxes I have plenty, right?
It's good, like a 12-foot HDMI cord. Be good.
And then, and then I can just go ahead and use that as a monitor. And I have a dream, kind of. I was going to come up with this cool concept because I'm starting to get enough monitors. Well, they're all old and different sizes, so it's not going to work. But I thought about enclosing this and kind of in the round, like having monitors all around me kind of thing, or some kind of... I may do something really artsy.
You want the 89 Bat Cave.
I do. I want the Michael Keaton Bat Cave. But I don't know.
We'll get you a green screen, man. Put a green screen behind you, light it up real good.
I have one. I was given a green screen that I folds up and everything. It can put behind me. It can actually hook to the chair.
Oh, hook to the chair. Oh, but no, I ain't talking about those junky ones.
No, this is actually a nicer one. You'd be surprised. It wasn't.
How big is it?
It's like it could.
Okay, that might could work.
When it folds out and it's it's got a nice little case.
I'm thinking of them like oval shaped ones that.
It was a gift like my mother-in-law got me years ago, and I've used it a couple times, but then green screen wasn't what it was, and I had my older computer which was slower. Blah blah blah.
Yeah. Well, you got to figure out how to work the chroma key in that program before you can.
And that's something I guess I'll be learning as well in class, but
Yeah, you won't be learning it in this class because this one is just like basic video editing, right?
Yeah, but apparently we're doing movies now. I guess I didn't read the syllabus good enough, and so I didn't think I'd be starring in films and making them. But anyway, I'm not complaining. It's always good.
I do have to go now. Nature beckons.
Well, thank you for flying the X-Jet while I had to take care of business myself.
You're welcome.
All right, well,
I can't say it was all that interesting what I was talking about. It was just, my channel.
Well, that's fine. Well, good luck with everything. We'll talk soon, I know. And thank y'all, everybody, for listening. Please like, subscribe to the channel, listen to the podcast. And sorry for the super long 3-hour episode.
No, you're not.
I'm not. And it's what it is and all that. But thank you, everybody, and the 2 or 2 or 3 people that were here live and the ones that have stuck through it. And thank you.
Yes, and the ones that are going to listen post. We
appreciate you, every single person. So thank you for being here. Let me roll out the outro here, which is that we got to work on an outro because I've had the intro here. So I'm just going to roll out on the outro here. And when that ends, then I'll cut the recording. But thank you very much, DigitalCavemann. And I'm Ed of Geek Homeworld. Thank y'all for listening, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to another exciting episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast with your host, Ed, a.k.a. The Savage Tech Man. Remember to follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for being a part of the Geek Homeworld.